Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Themis and Thoth. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking, go and get that. Today, we were going to be talking about adolescence, Netflix's new hit show. We will not be doing that. Instead, um, I was going to review a live stream um, that I was sent and I wanted to talk about, but I decided not to do that either because I don't think it's worth the trouble. Um, so instead, I wanted to do something that I've been wanting to do and talk to some about something that I wanted to talk about, which is which is church and the fact that women are leaving the church. And I will make my pitch. I won't make a pitch. I will attempt to make a pitch, but this live stream is for you all. As a Christian man, I want to hear your thoughts. I am trying to get this gentleman from TikTok. I was just on TikTok. And right before I left, this guy came up and he was talking about his family. Um, and I told him to message me, which he did. Because before I start this live stream, I wanted to give him the opportunity to state his peace, peace, not peace. Um, and I wanted him to come up and like explain himself some. I sent him the link. Hopefully the link is working. Let me attempt to send it again. Um, I sent him the link and let's see. Give me a second. Someone said this topic applies to me. It applies to a lot of people. Let me send him the link again. I hope he doesn't shy because like people don't know me on well, no one knows me anywhere, but particularly on TikTok, a lot of people might not know me. So like when we started talking, I hope he didn't shy away. How are you all this Good Friday? Hey, Sobo Bobo, how are you? How are you? Please like the stream. If nothing goes down, I will keep this public, but if things go down, then I'll private it. Okay. While I'm waiting for him, I don't like that. So I told a story earlier today on TikTok about something that happened to me yesterday. And I don't know that I can retell the same story with the same vigor that I had. So that's unfortunate. So I won't retell the story. Something great happened yesterday on my ride home. That's the best I got. That's the most I can give to that story. I was playing in Dust on YouTube and TikTok. My favorite pastime on TikTok right now is I've been living my best life. I've been living my best life on TikTok, going into people's live stream and enjoying myself. So it is what it is. Let's just get started. Um, and if your skin is glowing, thank you. Um, so I'm getting like I had a small breakout the other day, but things are clearing up. Things are clearing up. All right, kick up dust. Yeah, we'll just get our stream started. And if this gentleman does show up, if he does show up, then I'll add him and we can have the conversation. Um, we can have the conversation. But for now, let's just get started into this topic. I am going to drop the link, mind you. This is not a me live stream. This is an us live stream. Nothing I say should be taken against me today. Today I come as a Christian, but a humble Christian, a Christian who wants to hear the women's experience with Christianity. If they left Christianity, why? Is there something that could pull them back? sort of, it's not a religious debate about is it real or is it not real or is God real or whatever. That's not what I'm doing. Now, if that's why you left, obviously that might be a part you can definitely engage it, but I'm not here to like fight you on the validity of Christianity. But if you're talking about misogyny, if you're talking about um, your negative experiences in the church, I want to hear that. I also want people who are in the church currently to feel comfortable to come up and sort of provide a defense. And I will sort of play both sides, putting forward my own bias that I am, in fact, a Christian. Um, Themis Poker Face was prize. Wait, where? All right, let's do it. Today, this is going to go left. I don't think so. I believe in us. Ironically, it was the people from the church and knowing who they are as people is what turned me away from the church. As someone who was turned away from the church and then came back, I also understand and I have a deep sense of empathy for everyone. But we go and talk. All right, let's go. So in 2019, there was an article out talking on CBS talking about a growing number of Black women leaving the church specifically for witchcraft. And I hadn't read it until last week. And I thought it was interesting because one, I didn't think we would ever talk about it. But now I think I think I should bring it up, right? Let's let me pull this up. It says, for most, worship is a tradition that predates all of us. There is another more ancient art of worshiping, but it's not to God, the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost, but to spirits and deities that spawn the oceans and dates back to pre-slavery days in Africa. A growing number of Black women in Maryland, in particular, are leaving traditional churches for witchcraft. um looks into this group. Vic Carter looks into the trend and discovers it's about more than spells and ritual. When asked if they were in fact witches, he got this response. um du-du-du-dum. Sorry. No way. No way witches, that white thing. No, 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 no. There's a growing number. There is a disconcertment. There are people, I think, who want to control more of their lives, who believe in the ability to impact the world. There is this idea that witchcraft is beyond just pulling on powers outside of our realm. And there are a lot of. wait, 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 stop. Stop. There are people who believe in all kinds of ways to engage. It doesn't mean people are believing in the moon or making potions or spells. My understanding it that is that it runs the gamut of kind of investment in either personal growth, individual connection, women communing with each other, and some people do it in an attempt to rebel against the church. So I am not sure where people fall on this. If you're a witch and you feel so emboldened, please feel free to come up and explain why and why. They have many names, titles, and ranks within their beliefs. The women are college educated professionals who have chosen to believe that witchcraft is a truer example of worship, inclusive of the genders and connecting them to their ancestors. It fills a need not found in traditional worship. If witchcraft is a wide thing, then so is Christianity. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Um, let's see. I was Christian. I was raised Christian, said the Morgan State graduate. There are Christian. Where is this? There are Christians in my family. In fact, I'll add someone. They're Christian in my family. What my grandfather was a preacher in the South. I grew up Christian. I grew up in, Anglican in the I hate this word, Episcopal Church. The older I got, the more disconnected I felt with the church and not being moved by anything. Like it just felt like words, like really empty. All right. Hi, my melanin empress.
Oh, hi, Themis. Can you hear me clearly?
I can. There's slight buzz, but it's fine.
Okay.
How are you?
Um, I am well. Happy Friday to you and everybody.
Happy Friday. Happy Good Friday.
It is a
Uh,
good Friday.
not it is a Good Friday. It is the Good Friday. Are you Christian?
You know that I love. Yes, I identify as a Christian witch. Actually,
A Christian witch.
yes.
Explain the witch and then the Christian and then combine.
Very. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So there is actually the way that energy. Well, let me start with this. What people call witchcraft is actually just a manipulation of energy, and we all do it. We're all earthlings. There is earth-based energy, if we want to call it. So, for example, words have a way to change someone's energy. You can say something to lift somebody's spirits up. You can say something to encourage them, etc. That is an example of energy work as well. So when I say witchcraft, I'm just really talking about the manipulating energy of life. So whether we're using the system of earth-based magic, which is seed, plant, harvest, or whether you're using energy as far as how we are making other people feel and how people make us feel. So that's what I mean by energy of witchcraft.
Gotcha. And so when you say you don't think that being a witch in manipulating energies is inconsistent with being a Christian.
Mm-mm, no, I do not.
All
And
right,
I'll
how do
say
you
this.
go ahead?
Oh, yeah. And the reason why I say that, well, one, for example, too, all spiritual systems or even religions all have a mystical side to them or mysticism of it. For example, even Jesus himself had talked with his disciples of the upper room. That was different teachings that were not of public teachings because his public teachings were more parables. So he gave parables of storytelling to the public, but when he was with his disciples or those who were closest to him, they were giving more of the upper room teachings or the teachings of the prophets, of the elders, etc.
How do you know if those were private? How do you have access to it if you do?
Okay, so well, this is how I view it. So the Bible that we know it today, we know it's a series of books. The Bible is actually a series of archaeological and humanities. These are just numerous of books from different centuries that were compiled, edited, etc., however people want to say, that were put together to create this conglomerate of one book that we call the Bible. So if you
Mm.
look through the different writings of what we know as the founding fathers of Christianity, one being Origins, he was of the first century. His writings of the founding principles of Christianity were critiques of another writer that was 100 years before him, named Celsius or Celsius, depending on how you say the enunciation of his name. And Celsius was another philosopher around the time of Jesus, who had critiques about the growing faith of Christianity at the time. So when we get to Origen, who's 100 years after, he is criticizing Celsius's a belief that Christianity is very mystic, it's very earth-based, and that Jesus or Yeshua would probably be the better name because J didn't exist at the time, was more so a sorcerer than a prophet. And to break down what sorcery is, it's not witchcraft. Witchcraft is the manipulation of energy. Sorcery is the engagement with spirits or deities, whether that be saints, ancestors, etc. So
You
that was the
said
critique.
engagement. You said the engagement with entities.
Yeah, so spirits, whether that be angels, demons, ancestors, that type of
Oh,
will be otherworldly. So outside of, so witchcraft would be more earth-based interaction. Sorcery would be more outer earth. So what you call dimensions, spiritual realms, etc.
so when the Bible explicitly states that witchcraft is not of God as a sort of basis for understanding witchcraft, even to understand the Salem witch trial, which was toxic and degenerate. But to understand any of that is to say that witchcraft is antithetical to the Bible. Am I wrong in that interpretation? And how do you square that?
No, you're not wrong in your interpretation, but we have to remember the word witchcraft didn't exist in first century. So
Yeah.
again, the Bible as we know it today is just a combination of a bunch of books through the centuries that was compiled together through
Wait. No,
political control.
I'm I appreciate that critique, but for the purpose of this, we have to accept that Christianity is predicated on those books, translated and then provided in English. For
No,
laymen,
well,
oh,
I'll say this, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm also saying too that because of these combinations, combining these different writings from many different writers in different centuries, we have what we know today as the Bible that has been translated or reiterated into
mm,
what we know as English. Therefore, there is a lot of misinterpretations, whether that was purposeful, intentful, accidental. However, it has brought what we have today, what has been able to create the faith that people have based off today because of all of the different iterations and rewritings, and
yeah,
mainly
and
because it was about the control of said populations for
yeah,
empires.
and based on those books, based on that reinterpretation, based on the English version, which is what we follow currently, isn't witchcraft inconsistent with that?
Um, well, then you have to say what exactly are you saying is the witchcraft that they're inconsistent with, because there is a lot of witchcraft in the Bible.
Yeah, but when the issue is where it is explicitly talking about not well, I don't want to go to the Old Testament in that very specific way, but about suffering a witch to live. But it very clearly, from my understanding, and I guess we can go back to the Greek writing of the text to find out what was meant. But it very clear, or Aramaic, it very clearly says that witchcraft is inconsistent. At least that's the interpretation, that the modern interpretation. Is there an old interpretation that you're relying on to say it is not inconsistent? Did we
No,
mistranslate? All
there's
right.
not an older interpretation. What I am relying on is the other books that are consistent with the time that these many books were writing. For example, we look at the first five books of the Bible that were alleged written by Moses, right? So Genesis, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, etc. There
Hmm.
were other writings too during that time that were not included as the canon. So what I've been able to do, and I actually invite other people to do, is important to look at other spiritual systems. So, for instance, Judaism. There are books that are in Judaism that they study that will be that's consistent with the time frame of, let's say, the Torah, which is those first five books of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Those will have other writings and understandings of what was taking place around the time. And that's same when you get to the New Testament, when we get to the first century, second century, third century, all the other writings of Peter and other writings of other disciples and followers and critiques like Josephus is another first century or maybe more second century writer who had his views on what he believed Jesus was. So what I have done is I have taken other readings from the Babylon Talmud, who was written around that time of the first century Jesus, and looked at what was in the history books, what are at the museums, what are the artifacts, what are the other writings, and using that as a basis, just for me at least, saying, well, this is what has been done in history, this is what we have, this is how politics have worked, this is how empires have been able to rule, and make my judgment. It doesn't make me turn away from Christianity because I was born and raised in what we know
Yeah,
as
no, no.
modern day Christianity.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
my question to you is, you haven't explained how it's not inconsistent. Like, even if you say there are ways to interpret the Bible in the way that Christians now understand it via looking to the Torah, for example, which is what you brought up. You have, for my purposes, I want to find out, how do you make them not inconsistent? Where, like, if we go to the
Well,
old,
Leviticus, for example, Leviticus has a very other, I can't remember exactly the chapter, but there's a specific verse on how to tell if your woman's ever cheated. So you mix these different herbs and drink together, give it to her, and if her belly bloats, then therefore she's did whatever she did. That right there is witchcraft. The mixing of herbs and oils and
no,
potions,
but no, 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 no. You
that's
are
witchcraft,
calling,
though.
you can call it witchcraft. The Bible doesn't call it witchcraft. The Bible specifically condemns witchcraft. So because you say it's witchcraft, and maybe in your practice you are saying it is witchcraft, the Bible condemns witchcraft. So,
Well, the
like,
Bible does contradict itself in a lot of things. So you could say, well, in one area it says this, and then in another area, in a different chapter, different book, it says that. So
yeah,
what
but the
I have been able to do
condemnation of,
is,
wait, there is nowhere else in the Bible where it specifically allows for witchcraft. Now, what you're saying is that there are practices in the Bible that are either reminiscent of some of the practices in witchcraft, similar to in that way, or even if you say exactly the same, it's still like saying that you do something similar to something else doesn't make the thing you do the same thing as the other thing.
depending on the interpretation and who's looking at it.
No, unless you're saying that's the full. So if I am, sorry, if I am cutting a bread to make a sandwich versus cutting a bread to make French toast, I'm still cutting the bread. That I cut the bread doesn't mean it is either it's French toast, or that it is a sandwich that I'm making with the sliced bread. Like, you can't just take one element or similarity and then from that extrapolate that they're the same thing.
It's the
I
same.
think that's my. By the way, sorry, this is not a debate in any meaningful way. I'm just trying to understand, because, like, from
Well,
my
I say this
perspective,
from your perspective, that if you're going to take the Bible and how it is, way Christians view it, without having your additional resources of cross referencing yourself, then of course you're going to say, well, based
no,
on
no,
what
no.
I
I'm
know in
I'm
this book,
asking you to
Christian.
do the. No,
Oh,
you were. I'm saying you've done the cross referencing, right? You have decided that they are not incompatible, that they are not inconsistent at all. I'm asking you to explain how they are not inconsistent with the Bible in pretty much every single part that brings up witchcraft in particular condemns it.
I want to make sure I'm understanding your question, because from what I'm hearing is that you're saying without me having done the additional work that I have done in my own spiritual journey and religious journey to just understand my faith and why I believe what I believe, without taking that, removing that, and just going on just the Bible itself and how it is today. That's what you're asking me, correct?
No, I'm asking you how the Bible very clearly says one thing, and you're saying I'm doing that. I am doing the opposite of that, but it's not inconsistent with the Bible. I'm trying to figure out
Well, I
how
don't think I'm
you.
doing anything opposite of what it says.
The Bible says you should not practice witchcraft, and you say you're practicing witchcraft.
Because the Bible also has practices witchcraft within certain acts that are in it. So if
No, it
I'm doing
has
the same thing,
tradition. No, no, it doesn't have
well,
practicing.
can I give an example of what I mean then, and why I say it's the same? Again, we're
Uh,
going back to Leviticus, right? In the breastplates of the Levites, they were the priests of the tribes, correct? They would
mhm.
wear gemstones and patterns on their breastplates before they would enter the temple. Those gemstones and patterns that they were doing were just the crystal gridding. They were practicing crystal grids because crystal is an earth-based stone, gem, etc. that resonates on certain whatever. That is still a practice of witchcraft because that's still a manipulation of energy. So whether you're wearing a rose quartz or you're using tourmaline or emerald, ruby, etc., that is still an earth-based practice that is being incorporated into. And I guess they wouldn't call it Christianity in the Old Testament, but whatever that Hebrew faith practices were. So in that regard, those are the practices that I still do as well because I practice with the crystals and herbs and all oils and resin.
I don't. I don't. I'm not sure if you're not. And I. I don't know if I am not asking my question clearly enough because there are people in the chat that are also supporting you, and so I'm not saying. By the way, I'm not
And I can't see
telling
the
you.
chat, but thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm not telling you to not believe what you believe. This is not me trying to change people's mind. I'm actually, well, I will try to change people's mind at the end. I won't. I promise I won't. But what I'm trying to understand is you are saying that there are things that are in the Bible that witches do,
Hmm.
right? And because of that, you are saying the Bible is not inconsistent to be a witch.
Then I think we have to
Wow.
have the
Telling you
understanding
that,
of
wait,
what
wait.
witches is, because I think what is when because I told you what my definition and what is actually the definition of witchcraft that is used globally, but
Yeah,
then
that's
you may have a different definition. So
no,
what
no.
is your
I don't
definition
have a
too?
definition. I do. Well, I mean, everyone has a working definition, but my definition doesn't matter. I'm saying calling
Well,
it
for me to
by
understand where you're saying, I want to make sure what's your definition so I can understand your basis of
no, no,
why
no,
you're
no,
saying
no, no,
that
no.
too.
Mine, I promise you, mine doesn't matter. Why I'm saying it doesn't matter is by calling yourself something, you become that thing by name, if not name only, right? The thing that you've called yourself is the thing that the Bible condemns, right? I'm not, again, not saying you should or shouldn't be it. And you are saying, no, what I am and what I call myself is not inconsistent. Like I understand someone saying I'm a witch, but I'm not a Christian. But when someone say I'm a Christian and I am a witch, but the Bible says
Well, I
very
think I'm a
specific,
Christian witch, so it's more of a Christian and a witch. It's more of a Christian witch,
yeah, yeah,
and there's a
but the
lot of
Bible.
Christian witches out here, so I'm not
No,
the
no, no, no. I'm
solely
not
one.
saying no, no. I'm apparently the chat is like, yay, we are also Christian witches. Oh, actually, I think some people say they're witches, but they're still supporting
And
you.
yeah, because not every witch is Christian, and not every
Yeah,
witch aligns themselves to any type of religious
yeah,
structure too.
but the Bible what I'm saying is you are saying you are something that the Bible condemns, but you are that thing while also being Christian. And that's what I'm saying. Have you thought that through
Yes,
in a way
I
that
have.
all right. So can you explain how you put those two things together? And the reason I push back, by the way, on there is a practice here that someone, oh, I don't want to do this because someone eat the same food that I don't know, a terrible dictator, person who destroyed a bunch of people eat doesn't mean they're the same because you did something similar that to them doesn't mean you're the same as them. You know what I mean? Like you can do the same practices without being or the same practice. If everything else is not the same, it doesn't mean that you are the same as something else. Like this is the
I
whole
can see
thread.
what you're saying, and I guess at the same time too, to somebody else outside of that, if they only know it to be this one thing and they see it, they will assume it to be that thing too. So it's the
Y-
nuance comes in knowing a thing versus just looking at it and saying, well, because I see it as this, that's what it is.
Yeah. So define what a Christian witch is, and then how do like I'm trying to figure out how you square or engage with the fact that the Bible said you should not
Well,
see a
I
witch.
think for me, the one thing, the biggest thing is removing fear from that practice. Because to me, those who are just solely Christian, a lot of my engagement with people has been that they're Christian because of fear, fear of hell or
I'm one of
fear
those.
of, okay, yeah. And so for me, I remove fear from the equation. My relationship with God, what I believe to be is just higher power. I don't believe God to be a male or female. I just believe it to be what we know as life, energy that is prevalent in all things. What I believe that Jesus was, I do believe Jesus was someone who was studied in the mystery schools and came to spread what he has learned to other people. And because that was in defiance of the religious leaders for the Judaic faith and of the empire of Rome that was in control at the time, he was an agitator. So that is where I stand on that, based on all of the other, not just
So
theological readings, but also too, like I said, the philosophies and philosopher readings. So that's how I'm able to say I see Jesus as an example of what we are to do, what we can do. We can talk to angels and demons and saints and all those things. We can call down fire from heaven, which is just lightning. Lightning is a non-natural phenomenon. It's not a phenomenon of earth. But these are things that we too, because even he said, greater works that you will do too. So in that regard, this is where I say Christianity is my basis, because I was born into traditional Christian, went through my faith path to circle back to say, well, I still like Christianity. It is a more so of a container that I would use in my
okay, but
practice of my faith here.
the greater works should not, well, it depends on how you take it, because I think most Christians take that as you will go and you will preach and change people's hearts to being Christians more than I have. Using my words, that's kind of what they meant, but that's how at least I understand greater works you will do. But again, it feels like from your explanation that you were just dismissing the Bible and only using
Well,
the
I don't
part.
care if I dismiss the Bible. I can't dismiss the Bible because, again, I
You said you
don't limit
can.
myself. I can't dismiss it because there are
Wait,
a
wait,
lot
I'm
of.
not hearing you. Wait, wait.
Oh,
You said you cannot.
no, you cannot dismiss the Bible because you have the Psalms, you have the Proverbs, you have many scriptures. These, like, again, these are ancient texts that were just compiled together into a single book. So you, for
All right.
me at least, you can't dismiss it.
So when you hear and when you engage with the idea that being medium and like engaging in fortune telling and all of that, that creates uncleanness, right? And there's a biblical basis for the fact that this is unclean and you shouldn't do it. Um, and even practicing witchcraft, I think Leviticus very overtly calls this out. Like in Leviticus, Galatians, First Samuel's, and I probably should pull these up, but they are very overt condemnation there. Like it's not mincing words. It's saying this is unclean, this is not of God. And I'm not saying again you should not do it, which yeah, you should not do it, but that's not important to me. What's important to me is like every time I ask you, right, it feels like you don't explain how you engage with a very overt. Because even if you're like, oh, those practice are witchcraft, fine, you can practice if the Bible allows you to do this thing. But you're calling yourself a witch, which the Bible very overtly calls out.
And I told you my definition of which. That's why I line up
The
with that
Bible
definition.
defines witch in a lot of ways, but even
Well, then
without
give
the
me your definition that you're saying the Bible defines a witch to be. Because I gave you my definition of what witches are and what witches around the world identify themselves as. They're earth based, if you want to call it magic, it's not me, earth based systems.
yeah, no, but it's
So
no, but wait,
that's why I'm coming to, I want to understand well, then give me your basis of what you're saying for
No,
Christianity
no,
or
no,
the
no.
Bible
Wait,
saying
wait.
witchcraft is, and I could tell you how I either align or
The
don't align.
Bible
Does that
does.
make sense?
Yeah, no, that's fine. The Bible doesn't define witchcraft every time it calls it out. And so, even in the Bible, if you're looking for a definition, it would be very loose, right? But the title itself, it's not just a word, it's a title of a person. And you're taking on the title. Not if even if you don't call yourself a witch and you say, oh, I did this thing in the Bible where Jesus did, or I attempted to do this thing Jesus did, by not calling yourself a witch, you're not necessarily falling into the category of things that are being condemned. By calling yourself a witch, you're putting on a title, like it's saying, I'm a well, I'm not going to say that, but like it once you put on the title, you can't then just say, well, I just define it differently. But the thing that is being called out is the title. It
Okay,
is.
but yeah, and I guess and that's okay. You're calling out the title. So then my
Mhm.
questioning to you is, what does the Bible say a witch is? Because if it doesn't say what it is, then you leave it up to the people who identify this, calling themselves that. This is what we are. This is what we do. So we're
Yeah,
going to
but that
hold
would
on
be
to
in
that. So I want to know
rebellion. But
what is the definition you need me to align with so
no,
that
no,
I can
I
understand your
mean,
basis.
we can go to Leviticus, but you keep the reason I'm not going to give you an example. I'm not going to. Let me just. If you can keep asking if you want. I'm not going to define witchcraft, right? I'm not going to do that. The Bible in First Samuel talks about rebellion and the sins of witchcraft, right? And the witchcraft has a bunch of different practices. And I don't know that I can go through all of them. I can just define which broadly using the dictionary. I'm not going to do that either because it feels like you're playing a game with me where you are saying you need to define witchcraft to see
Well,
if
no,
I
I'm because
need
I'm
to.
giving you my definition of what witch is, what
Yeah,
witchcraft is, and
which is
you. It seems like you need me to say something specific, and I want to make
no,
sure
no,
I
no.
say it specific for you from the perspective that you're coming from. So it's not me trying. I'm not toying with you. I think we're
Mm,
just trying to find a way to meet at the middle so we can have our
okay,
conversation.
let me address Elizabeth. Demas, if you don't define what witchcraft is, then the conversation is pointless. It is not. If you say you're a sinner, right? There's some things that are included in what a sinner is. We are all sinners, we all sin. And the Bible say you should turn away from sin, right? So if you're like, I don't sin, but I'm just gonna call myself a sinner, then that's a word without meaning, right? Like, fine, you didn't do anything. When you take, it's not a title in the same way that saying I am a witch, which the Bible says you shouldn't suffer a witch to live, right? I'm not calling for that now. I think that was like whatever. um when the talk about the practice of those who practice witchcraft were to be put to death, and this was considered a serious sin from the Catholic Church. When we look to Galatians, where witchcraft is left among other sinful behaviors, indicating a place of like moral instability. When First Samuel said it's unclean um, uh, or rebellious for people to engage in sin, in witchcraft, there is a very specific title and ownership of a title that the Bible rejects, right? There's a set of beliefs that you can control the unseen, right? So if you're like, okay, witchcraft is generally the idea that you can control the unseen in a way that is anti whatever the Bible expects you to do, right? You
Okay, so
can
let's
do,
we
you
can
can
I'll work
say
with
what
that definition, and let's say
you can
that's
no,
the
you can't
definition.
work with that definition because it's not complete. Because you can perform miracles, and the Bible allows for the performing of miracles through Christ, right? So you cannot then say, oh, the performance of miracle is you doing witchcraft. No, it is performing a miracle separate from witchcraft by definition. Now, if you're saying, well, what I do as a witch is perform miracle, you are still taking on a title, and the title is rejected by the Bible, and then we're pretending like the Bible didn't reject this title, and then you're saying define it so I can fight with the definition of it, but the
Well, I don't
definition.
have to fight it. I just wanted to see, well, where you, because I'm agreeing with the Bible does not explain what a witch is, and I also like let you know that the word witch is a modern word that has been interpolated
Yeah.
into the Bible. So it wasn't even a word that was used. So what would be the original word that they would have used to understand what was the context of their time?
Sorry. I'm going to ask you to ask this question because I was reading this comment. What's the difference between miracles and witchcraft? Thanks, Demas.
And see,
Um,
some people would say miracles was witchcraft or
yeah,
sorcery, depending on what was
because they
manifested.
don't accept that there is a separate. The thing is, if you are a witch or you believe in witchcraft or whatever, and not God, then you are not going to
But did
accept.
you hear what I said? What witch? Okay, what witches
I'm
are?
responding to the comment. The
Oh, my bad.
comment. You are rejecting that through God, this is not no longer witchcraft. This was never witchcraft. This is God. This is not you. This is the power of God. If you have other kinds of power outside of God, then your experience of whatever you are doing, you are going to try to equate it to God. And I'm not going to fight you on that. That's your belief. But I'm saying from a Christian perspective, those are two separate things. The way you create whatever you create and the way a Christian create whatever they create from a Christian lens, not yours, from a Christian lens, those are two very different things, two completely different things. Okay, now that we get that straight, if you're a Christian witch, there is now an argument, right, about wait, how do you then combine the two? Because one clearly is outside of God, thus witchcraft, and the other is through God, thus Christianity. How are you then saying you're going to do both together? Again, as an outside witch, fight me on it like, no, it's the same and we can do the differences. Fine. Because as a Christian, I'm going to say, well, that's not of God. But as a Christian, which there's now a kind of tension, and that tension is what I'm trying to figure out from Melanin Empress.
Oh, wait, what's the question that you have for me again?
Yeah. Sorry, it's the same question repeated. I'm
So how do
not.
I reconcile the witch part? Is what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I reconcile the witch part because the definition that witches identify as are energy workers. So whether we are talking about how we make someone feel with our words, how we are able to be part of seed, plant, and harvest, because when you put a seed in the ground, you don't see it change and manifest, but you are practicing the protocol of earth. That is another thing. When it comes to stones, herbs, oils, resin, those are considered witchcraft practices.
All right.
So
That's
when I say that, I
fine.
use that
And
part
then
of
witchcraft.
my
Then are you saying then witchcraft is science?
it is scientific too, yes, because even some people will say
All
science
right.
was witchcraft.
So why would you call yourself a witch and not a scientist? Because I
I,
can
I don't
explain.
actually I like the word witch because it could it puts people at ooh, what do you mean by that?
Okay, see,
But
that
I'm
is the rebellion that I am talking about initially. That is in the title. It is in the title that we are. Because if you're not saying, are you saying you believe in casting spells on people?
yeah,
Not spells in the way that you
yeah,
use
like when you
words.
say casting, yeah, well, that's how you do spells is
Yeah,
casting
yeah,
spells with words, writing. Sure,
yeah,
we see it all the time with marketing, right? We see it.
yeah.
So
No, 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 no.
witchcraft is
No,
happening to us all around.
I was trying to explain what I mean by this. So, in the way that you say something in your room at night, can you affect someone else who is not hearing you and make them do something bad happen to them, for example, without anything but your words in a room and like a candle? I don't know.
I mean, you could do that by even saying something good to somebody. So there's no we put good and bad on it based on the outcome that we're trying to have on somebody.
All right.
So if you decide to do that, then that's going to be an outcome. the same way you can either choose to give your words can give life, your words can give death, but you get to choose how you use your words. And that's where I align myself up with.
All right. So would it be through God that you are making someone harming someone? By the way, I just set you
Sure,
in a
because God
trap.
said get your harm. Yeah, because you got enemies. If you have an enemy, God, I'm gonna say, Lord, I'm gonna pray them spicy
I
prayers
am
like
using the
David
fact
did.
you don't
Don't get my enemies, Lord. Yes.
you want to hear something really interesting? I just set a trap for you and you walked right in it because I was seeing if you were interrupting me or if I was imagining it, but you are. The trap that I set, well, I'm not going to explain this, but let me get to the conclusion of it. So you believe that it is through God that you can cast a hex on someone, that God is allowing you to hex someone.
Well, I'm saying this. If I have an enemy and I say, Lord, this person has been coming against me, deal with it. If something happens to them because they came against me,
But
that's what
that
I'm putting into it. So I think you want me to say something quite
no,
specific to your understanding, but I'm saying if I have
I'm not,
somebody
no.
doing well for me, I'm going to speak well to
Wait,
them too. If I have somebody putting harm to me, I'm going to like deal with that
Oh my
too.
God, that's not what I asked though.
Okay, then go back to what is it that you want me to say?
I'm not asking you to say anything. I'm asking you to answer the
Well,
question.
I'm answering it, but I think you want me to say something different. I'm just telling you this is how I'm practicing. This is my way of doing it, and this is my explanation.
Whenever I speak, right, what you do is before I can come back in, after I ask your question, you try to over explain something that I did not ask. So it almost feels like you try to get where I'm going with the line of question, and you're trying to answer the second and third question when I've only asked one. And so when you do that, it doesn't leave enough room for us to have the conversation.
Well, I apologize, but I also think, like you just said, you want to try to trip me up where I don't feel like I can be tripped up. If I'm saying this is my practice and this is how I live and this is how we define it, what is there to trip me up on?
I did once, and I did that because I wanted to test if you were just like interrupting, and it seemed like you were at that point. But my question was about sort of if you ask God to give someone what they deserve and something bad happens to them, we'll talk about free will and intervention in a minute. Oh, probably not. But that's different from calling a hex on someone. Like you were saying, you want something bad to happen to someone, right? And to try to conflate those two things feels a bit disingenuous.
I never said I want something bad. I said if somebody comes against me, I'm going to send it up. Say, hey, Lord, you know what this is. There's an enemy come against me. Deal with it, and however you see fit. I don't got to say it has to be a specific thing, but I want it to be dealt with.
That's the question I asked. Can you intentionally cause harm to someone else?
I don't say I'm causing harm, but I am asking for justification, restoration, restitution. However it may manifest. That's not what.
You're not.
Well, I'm okay. Let me try to think. What you're saying? Do I ever say do harm to this person?
Let me explain what's happening. I am asking you if you can cause harm to someone else, like you can intentionally say, I want to harm someone, and then do some kind of prior whatever ritual to harm that person, right? That's the question I'm asking. The question
the
way you are answering is saying, I can pray to God to deal with someone the way he sees fit. So in some ways, you're thinking about a karmic justice. So if that person was bad and God sees it fit to cause harm to them or whatever, then that works. But it's not you praying for harm, it's you praying for justice. Those are two very different things.
Okay, then justice. But I mean, if somebody gets harmed because of however their justice falls for me, I don't feel like I did anything wrong.
No, that's
I have
fine.
the right to pray for that.
But that's not the question I'm asking. You're answering a question in a way that I appreciate, and I wish more people would be like, I pray God or whoever you believe in would give them what they deserve, not what I think they deserve. Great, fine. Karmic justice, bigger than us. The question I'm asking is, can you say, I want to harm that person. And this spell is to, in fact, harm, let's say,
I guess
break
you
this
can. Yeah,
person's
I guess
spirit.
somebody could say that. Yes, then yes.
And you are saying you're asking that from God,
No,
from the same
well,
Jehovah.
the way I said, I don't ask for specific harm. I ask for, like I said, either justice, restitution. I
Yeah,
ask
but
for
I'm
that, and
saying
however it manifests.
in the case that you can, which you said you can, right? Not you, you wouldn't do it, hopefully. We're good, great people over here, right? So I'm not putting that
Yeah, because
on you.
I don't believe to do harm. Like I said, I
Yeah,
follow the framework of I like Christianity as a framework. So to me, I wouldn't go out to do harm to
gotcha.
anyone
So,
intentionally. That's not what I would do.
so to everyone listening, this is not Melanin Empress. This is me asking her a question. Let's say you wanted to do harm and you get the candles or whatever you do to do the harm, right? Who are you asking to do that harm?
Well, then that would be if I was to want to do harm, it wouldn't necessarily be the God of the Bible per se, because
Exactly.
allegedly I wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
Then you would have to go into.
Exactly.
Can I finish what I had to say? You would go into how other people work with, like I said, calling on other angels and demons, calling on other entities. That is open to them if they want to practice that. That again, people have free choice and free will to practice what they want. With me, with my framework, I like to use the framework of Christianity. I like the mysticism of Christianity. That's just what I like to deal with and work with. So, and I don't have an issue with the word witch. It doesn't hang up on
Yeah.
me, but I can understand
Sure.
for others who may.
Yeah. So the what I was trying to do, and someone like, oh, that's not fair, that's not fair. It is fair. I'm trying to understand because if someone is a witch and they're like, oh, I'm not Christian, right? That person can say, well, I can go to God for this, I can do this because I am not Christian. Don't try to hold me to your Christian values, beliefs, whatever. And in my head, I'm gonna be like, you know what? You're right. I can't hold you to it. When you say you're a Christian and then you're using other entities to cause harm to someone else, that feels, and they're very specific rules around Christianity and what God and which God, like who you can and should pray to, and God being a jealous God and not praying to other gods and not, in fact, harming people with your prayers. And so the first prayer is there's some argument to say, God, this person has been harmful to me. Do with them what you feel. Fine, right? The next prayer are calling on entities to cause physical harm or cause harm to someone feels very anti-biblical, at least in the current conception. And then you said not well, you wouldn't ask God for that. Maybe call a demon or something. And I don't know. You didn't say demon. I'm just making something up. Angel to go do it. And so it that would be idolatry in the Bible, right? And so this is why I was like confused. Like one can be witch, one can be Christian. Fine. A Christian witch, and I'm not saying you can't be. And let me step back. I am not the authority here. I'm not a Christian apologist. I don't study in any kind of apologetics. This is just me rambling of a crazy person online. So my melanin princess has been very um graceful with her time. And so this is not me saying she's right or wrong. It's just my interpretation of what she's saying. And from my perspective, it feels like idolatry as opposed to like saying both Christian and witch. But I also realize that's a bad judgment, and I don't know that I'm the right person to make that judgment. So I can say I'm also probably wrong in that judgment. Um, sorry, my melanin empress. By the way, you can drag me. You have the full right to drag me after what I just said. But go ahead. I want you to be able to talk, and anyone else can come up. You can come up and say why you left the church, misogyny, all of that, whatever. I'll drop the link again. Go ahead, melanin princess, empress. You're muted if you were trying to talk. Someone said, please read the super chat. Sorry, I was saving them. 2L said, based on what she explained, she does it's that It's that a consistent practice or belief that all Christian witches follow. That's what we are looking to learn here. Oh, you've been a member for 32 months. My Melanin Empress, are you there? I'm getting worried now. Did I do something wrong? I'm going to pray. Oh. Did I mess up now? Oh, yeah, maybe she. Maybe she's frozen. Maybe she. Thank you to else. You've been a member for 32 months. Mm. So I hope, yeah, it could be a connection. But let me say this. Please note that when you come up here, and if you come up here, if I'm pushing back and it feels offensive, because sometimes I get like really deep into like my Christian head or whatever, and I might say something, please note that you can drag me. Let me go off screen. You have absolutely every right to drag me because I am not the authority here. This is not my wheelhouse. I don't know enough to be dragging anyone or telling anyone about this or that. I just wanted to learn for real. And I wasn't expecting to have a conversation necessarily on Christian witches, but I should have known people who are both Christian and witches existed. Hoodoo, for example, and a lot of Southern tradition, particularly around Louisiana, like I should have expected this kind of conversation. Um, so I want to apologize in advance if you come up here. I also want to hear stories about like kind of reasoning about leaving the church because of sexism or misogyny. One of the things that I've been hearing is that it is impossible to be both Christian and like agentic or self aware and protect yourself as a woman. Because Christianity preachers and our understanding of Christianity today have women at a very distinct disadvantage in that their life should be in service of a man who is their husband, and that your husband is the head. And this kind of patriarchal norm, some would say misogynistic, has led a lot of women to leave the church. And I was looking for some of that conversation because, in truth, I have no pushback. I have no pushback against this. Whenever I hear a woman explaining their experiences with the church, you're
Sorry, I lost signal, but I'm back
oh
if
my
I
god,
missed
thank
too
God,
much.
thank God. I felt so bad. I felt
Oh
so
no.
bad. No, yeah, because I was like, what did I do now? And I'm trying to like figure out what I did, and it could have been a
No,
number of
it's
things.
been
So
good.
thank.
I'm driving. I'm in the mountains, so I'm back
All
now.
right, awesome. All right, woo. All right, cool. Themis thought he was being no. I didn't think I was being cursed. She doesn't. She said she doesn't do that, and I believe her. Let me read this, and then we'll come back to you, and I'll give you the floor to like sort of talk more, um, and not interrupt as much. Adam or Eve were kicked out of of Eden for eating from the tree of knowledge. It was a sin to have knowledge. Um, Stage set for a Bible condemning witches in a literal book of spells and rituals. Yeah, fair enough, Miss Whitwit. Fair enough. If we consider knowledge as um, in the general sense and not knowledge in a specific sense around sin. And some people interpret it as sexuality in very specific ways, then I wouldn't fight that, but there are interpretation of the kinds of knowledge that was granted by the tree. But also I don't defend the tree. Like, I think the tree of knowledge was an attempt at giving free will. It could also be a story, because a lot of the Bible I don't think are literal historical facts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much I believe the story, the Garden of Eden story as literal, right? And most of the Bible I don't read literally. Go ahead. What do you have questions for me, mind you, or do you have statements you want to make?
You talking to me?
Yeah, and also, do you
Oh,
have
wow.
social media or anything you want to promote?
No, I don't have any other social medias. But I'm so sorry. What was the question? I know you were answering the
Super
chat.
chat. Yeah, I was saying, is I don't know how much you heard of me what I said, but do you have anything that you wanted to add to what you were saying? And also, do you want to have any questions for me? Because I do want this to be conversational. Um,
Yeah. Um, I don't know if I have any specific questions, but I when I saw the title and I thought it was interesting because I was just having this conversation with another friend of mine. She doesn't identify as a Christian, but she is more on a mystic of some sort. So we like
mm,
to have these conversations of she's more, I guess, Muslim Islamic mysticism is what she kind of leans more into, and a little maybe some of the Buddhists too. But I think it's interesting as Black women, because I'm a Black woman and my friends are Black women, are having this experience where we are looking for something more deeper. Me personally, I've always was more of a questioner, and I was a, or maybe a doubting Thomas. My mom said I always doubted everything because it was the Bible was intriguing and weird to me growing up, and I was always wanted to know, well, what does this truly mean? So me being my own seeker and asking questions, and also being a historian because I went to my degree is in African American history and in women and gender studies. So that was has led me to so actually studying more about the Neolithic age and what was life pre-written when before we started writing, what were people and humans doing? That has helped me unleash that a lot of the faith that we practice as Christianity today is very colonized and it's very patriarchal, which is a quote unquote newer way of the world to be. So this is what
do
led me to my discovery, if you want to say.
Do you believe that the Bible, as it stands, can only be interpreted as patriarchal? So I do this thing where, like, because my natural debating instinct kick in, it feels like a debate. So let me put my position up forward. I'm not going to push back against this. I do think it's patriarchal. I think our conception of it is patriarchal. I think that conception is correct. And I think people who pretend like it is not are lying. For my personal life, I just ignore it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say a really a book that has helped me, and it's actually by Dr. Vivian Hunter. It was called The First Prophetess of Mami Wata, and how their prophecies were stolen by what we know as the Catholic Church. And she's a historian. Well, she's passed on now, but she was a historian, and so a lot of her writings were just her studies of the history of Catholicism, as well as what were ancient people practicing in the faith, and the Sibyls that we know were the Black women writers, philosophers, musicians. These prophecies and writings and teachings were taken from them when patriarchy rose up and became more of a way of life. So my stance is I like to go back, well, what was people practicing before? And how can I still use what is still beneficial that we have today? So I'm not anti-Jesus. I don't believe Jesus to be like the savior of earth or the world or whatever. I don't believe
Wait,
that. But I do believe that he is. Oh, can I finish or no?
all right, finish. But
Oh,
I mean,
okay. Can
go ahead,
because
go ahead,
what
go
I
ahead, go ahead.
believe, I definitely do believe that this person Jesus existed. I just think his story was just, I think it was a politicized story. However, to get people to be in alignment with the government at the time. But what I do believe, Jesus, I do believe he was a miracle worker, whether people want to say it was witchcraft, sorcery, whatever. And I do believe he was here to let us know that we are whether you want to call the children of God, the children of consciousness, whatever that is, that we're all one people, one spirit, and we're not limited into being subjugated. I think he was an agitator in that way. And
You
therefore, I align myself with his teachings and his way of living.
all right. So you are
Like I
hi
grew up as a
Jen.
Christian, so one point I did believe everything. Oh, Daddy God, Sky, Jesus, no mother, just the Holy Spirit. I believed all of those are one things, but as I've gotten older and studied, it's like I don't believe that to be true. But what I do believe is what I do believe this person existed. I don't believe that they were just a woman that birthed this omniscient being. I don't believe that. It's just
Um,
hard to believe that one for me.
so let me say this. Hey Sin, welcome. Thank you so much. Hey, all right. I think people in the chat are getting real confused. So let me unconfuse you right now. Let me unconfuse you right now. I am not arguing from a secular perspective. I'm not saying, oh my God, this is not true, and I can show you exactly how it's not true. I am saying if you're a Christian, these are the things that you believe. That's all I am saying, right? So if you're not a Christian and you're mad at Christianity, that's fine. Go off in the chat. I'm not gonna like change your mind. But please follow what I am saying, because it is okay to not agree with something, but understand that I'm speaking from a different perspective and then try to understand that perspective, right? What my
I
melanin
think I
princess,
understand your perspective, I
yeah,
believe,
oh
but I
no,
don't know
no.
if you understand mine.
I think I do, but I also maybe I don't. So you can help me clarify. I was talking to the chat though. Here's why. When you say you don't believe God, Jesus saved the world, that is like a fundamental belief of Christianity. So how are you a Christian while not believing that?
Like I said, I like the Christian framework. I practice Christian mysticism. So, and I use the word witchcraft because, again, witch is just earth-based practices that the Bible does show as well. So, in
Okay, so
that
you're not a
regard,
Christian then. Like in the way
well,
that
not, and
you
I guess not
believe.
the modern traditional sense of like
All right.
Jesus died on my sins. I don't, no, not that way, but I
Oh,
do believe
okay.
that Jesus is the way as far as his path and what he was here to show and do. I do believe in that. I do believe in that aspect of him. I believe he was a true person as well. I just don't
All
know if
right.
I believe in the fact that he was this sole son of God that died on for the sins of humanity. That part is up to debate for me.
All right, got it. So we're actually talking from two very different perspectives. The Christian I thought you were isn't the so um you didn't say this, and I'm not putting this necessarily on you, but I've also had a similar conversation before, and I should have picked it up earlier. Someone was like, "Oh, they believe in Christ." And they were like, I was like, well, what do you mean you believe in Christ? And there is like this new age, like Christ consciousness. And so there are people who do believe that Jesus Christ was a real person that taught mysticism. And there are other people, new age people, who think that there is a consciousness that you can reach that is Christ consciousness, right? And
Mhm.
for a long time in those conversations, I thought we were talking about the same Christ. We were not, right? In the same way, I think I thought we were talking from the same principles of Christianity. So when you say you're Christian, there's some fundamental belief that I just
Well,
automatically
I said
assume.
Christian witch. I never said Christian. I said a Christian witch.
Yeah, you are correct. But I heard Christian, I heard Christian witch. But from Christian witch, I heard Christian, and you as a Christian, and I asked, can you explain how you're Christian, how you're witch, and then how you combine the two? Because that's how but you're saying you do use the Bible in your practice. Not only do you
Mhm.
use the Bible, you believe in the Christ, the human person, but you not as the Son of God who came to die for our sins, and through him we all go to heaven if we believe that he's the Son of God. You don't believe that. You believe him, the person, and some teaching from him. And you call yourself a Christian. I can tell you you're not a Christian, but you don't believe in the way that we are told that as Christians we have to believe that Jesus is the Son of Christ who came to Son of God who came to die for our sins. You don't believe that.
No, I don't believe. I once believed it. I don't believe that no more.
Oh, okay.
Come here. I said I was born Kojic, so Church of God in Christ. That's the background that grew up in. But as like I said, as I grew up and had more questioning about, well, why do I believe my faith? Knowing what I know about the history of Christianity, knowing that I have had some type of experiences in Christianity, I wanted to find, well, what is my path? And that's what led me here. So again, it became through going to different museums, the Met Museum, the Jewish museums, going to reading the different books, different philosophers of the first century, the critiques, the apologetics. I mean, I was an apologetic for my early 20s of my life. That's actually why I joined the apologetics, because I was upset about all the growing trend of people becoming more, what was the word at the time? It was like the oh God, I forgot the name of the term, when everybody was holding the eye over this, the one eye, all the musicians were Illuminati,
Oh, the
thank you.
Illuminati.
Yeah, so during that early 2010s was my heyday of like being a part of the apologetics. And what shifted my perspective was my pastor. Not that he said to change my perspective, but we were studying the book of Revelations. And it was two things that he said that made me go, hmm. One of it was he had called the Catholic Church the horror the Bible speaks of, like the great war, whatever. Knowing my
Babylon.
Yeah, Babylon. Well, he said Catholic. He said the Catholic Church. That's what he said. I'm just gonna say what he said. He said the Catholic Church. And me knowing, well, Catholicism is the original, what Christianity came out of, right? So if you're gonna call her that, then what are you calling everybody else? And then the next thing he also said another time during the study was, don't read other books. You might be surprised what you find. And I that was like that point, I was like, "You know what? I'm going to read everything I can, study and show myself approved to see, like, well, if you're not in this, you need to show it to me." That was my decree at that time, and I believe it brought me to where I am now,
Gotcha.
10
So
years ago. Yeah.
do you believe in the resurrection?
I don't believe in that, no. I believe that those were more allegorical. I believe that the Bible is more allegory. I believe there's more historical writings. I believe they're more they're poems. I believe they're a combination of many different writings that were in across the centuries that were compiled. So in that aspect, I don't believe that Adam and Eve were the only two people that ever existed in it. I don't believe that. I believe that these are allegorical stories that we can definitely take lessons and reference from, and even spiritual understanding from.
Got it. What so you were talking about your pastor. No, by the way, the reason I'm not pushing back is that we're coming from two different framework, and this conversation feels a lot different, right? So I appreciate that. Yeah, the
Well, I
misunderstanding.
appreciate you having the conversation too, because I think that it's interesting to hear all the different perspectives of how, well, how did this person get to this from this start point, and you're from that start point and you're here. So I don't mind engaging with people at all. So thank you for having the moment.
Yeah. You said Mommy Water and the other day I just heard that name, and it was in reference to someone trying to gain wealth. It was this African program, I forgot which country, and she was on there saying that she she gets anything she wants, and all she has to do is like pray to Mommy Water. But I won't critique a practice in the way that I've never seen miracles performed by individuals who are from the church. I can't test a theory on which chairs because it would be slightly unfair, very unfair. But what was the thing, or maybe it's a cumulative thing that made
Yeah.
you not want to be like if,
It
be
was a
as
yeah, it was
specific
a
as you can?
cumulative thing. It wasn't nothing specific. I mean, as early as being in Sunday school and having questions about, well, why would the how did baby Moses hide amongst the Egyptians if Egypt was in Africa, or just asking questions, well, how do we know God was doing? So it started of me just being curious as a child and getting in trouble for asking questions in children's church and Sunday school. And then
Same,
as I
same.
just got, oh, okay. And then I was an avid reader. I just always really loved reading. So history is my favorite subject. I mean, I went to college and I was African American studies major, and then I minored in women and gender studies. And in my women and gender studies course, we were studying the Neolithic age. So the age when they were a
Yeah.
lot more goddess artifacts. And why did people believe in this idea of a goddess and what was that meaning? So that opened up a whole new world for me. Later on, I took an American literature class, and one segment was we were studying Native American origin stories. And my professor, white female at the time, just said, it's believed that the Native Americans are part of the lost tribe of Israel. And it just remember something she said, it just kind of perked my ear, didn't touch deeper into it until years later, post college, when I was living in Charlotte at the time. And it was when those Hebrew Israelite people were around, and they had this chart of like different tribes of whatever should be. And I saw that they had Native Americans on their chart list. So that piqued me, like, okay, I'm seeing this again. So never joined a Hebrew Israelite or anything like that, but just, well, what were they reading and following with their teachings? And eventually what led me to it, because I like etymology, the study of words and where the words come from. And it was either one of the teachings of these Israelites were saying, or Hebrew Israelites, whatever, the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the name, I believe, that a Hebrew name for the Holy Spirit. It's a feminine word, and knowing language outside of English, has feminine and masculine wording. That made me want to understand, well, what's this concept of the Holy Spirit? Why is the name feminine in Hebrew, but then we translate it in Christianity as God the Father, Son, Spirit, but it's all supposed to be male. So I want to peek through the veil of, well, what is this feminine ideal of God? It has to be something, God has to be not just masculine, it has to be feminine, as above, so below. So it's a very nuanced experience that I went through. And it was around the same week my pastor said, don't read other books, you'd be surprised what you may find. And that was in it for me. I started to read every philosopher I could find during that age, cross-referencing with all the different my history books from my gender studies time, and studying Makadashu, studying Constant Tempest. These are all historians. Actually, Makadashu is still living today, and still teaches today, about this specific age of the Neolithic age. And that's what led me to my place today. So it wasn't like a one-stop shop. It was a build upon each other. And I happen
The
to like Christianity, even with its issues. I happen to like it. I like the mysticism of it. I've had real lived
that
experiences in it. So my thing is, I don't have to limit myself to the limitations of what people use it as a control method. I like to take the beauty of it, and I use the beauty of it.
the simplified and reductive way to analyze some of what you just said is you were looking for a feminine deity.
No, I wasn't looking for nothing feminine. It was just because that aspect kept coming up. And I was here when they would say, well, as above, so below. And I'm like, well, how's it that you have women down here? Why wouldn't there be something as above the same thing? So it was just so much. It was, again, we're trying to simplify a
No,
30-year
no, no, don't
journey.
don't let me simplify. Well, you have to, because like
Yeah,
you're
because we
putting
have a
it in
limited time.
language. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the with your experience, and I'm trying to full disclosure, there is, instead of asking the question, I'm just going to um engage with it. When I ask if you're looking for a feminine deity, you were talking about seeing the feminine, and the masculine, and the way that they reference God, the Hebrew Israelites in particular. And then you said,
Well, they never
um,
referenced God. They were just saying how the word rock, hu kadesh, whatever the term for the Holy Spirit, was a feminine word. And that just made me go like, well, well, why would it be feminine? But then the Bible also, I think it's who is it? Solomon calls the Holy Spirit Sophia. So those are just the things that just cross-referencing. A lot of my work has been cross-referencing materials and saying, okay, well,
yeah,
what can we get to the basis of what stands and what's just, again, these are people's ideas, but what's truth? What can we hold on that we can see today? These are at
yeah.
the artifacts, these are at the museums, these are written in the different books.
Wait, one second.
I'm
Wait, wait,
just,
wait.
oh,
Sorry. So on that front, there's also this idea, and the reason I cut you off is because I'm trying to ask a question about sort of you saying you like this, and then you like some of this, and then you liked Christianity still. Um, my approach, I'm trying to reframe everything I say in a way that's not a pushback or a debate. So I'm taking ownership and making myself open for attacks in this way. My approach to life is not to find that wish I like necessarily as to be the thing that I follow. Um, and the way I ask if you are looking for feminine divine is to
No, actually, I
ask.
was just looking for truth, to be
No,
honest.
no, you said you rejected.
I
No,
was
no,
okay with
wait,
if
wait, wait,
everything
one
is supposed
second,
to be this way,
one
Lord, then
second.
that will
Yeah,
be that way.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm saying
I
you.
was
I
like,
heard you.
yeah.
I heard when you rejected when I asked, were you looking for a feminine deity? You rejected that, right? And so I'm trying to ascertain by asking that if when you say things like I took the parts of Christianity or like I kept Christian because I liked part of it, the descriptor of why feels inappropriate from my perspective, at least my view of how I choose what to do and what to not do. It's not always and not necessarily because I think it feels good or I like it, but that it's the right thing. And obviously we don't know what the right thing is. Um, and so I felt some of that, and I don't know if you want to speak to that. Like I'm trying to ask it in a way that's not like
Yeah. Well,
it's not
no,
like
I like
argumentative.
again, I'm giving language to something that has been lots of study that led to this point where I'm at.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, when I decide to really study and show myself approved, and I'm going to read these other books, forget what this pastor's saying. I need to know because I felt like there's more, and I feel like they're being lied to. And no, don't ask God. You shouldn't question it. But I was like, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel resonant to me with God. Because if why would God give me a curious mind and then label me evil? I just couldn't reconcile that. So for me, it was about I just need truth. If the truth is that, then you know what? Jesus came from a woman named Mary, and Jesus was his name, and that is all that there is, then let that be truth. I did not care. I just wanted truth. I just got tired of feeling that. I'm
Mm.
hearing like, this is the white man's religion, or I'm hearing, well, you got the Illuminati thing going on. You have all of these things were coming at in my experience, and so I want to
I
find for
mean,
me what's true to me, and this is what led truth to me, and that's where I land on it.
even the way that you just described curiosity feels inappropriate. So, like,
Being
there
curious
are
was
things.
inappropriate.
No, 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 no. Not being curious being inappropriate. I said the way you like. Why would God punish you or have an issue with you being curious if He gave you curiosity? But there are things for which you might be curious, and one might be curious, and they don't engage to find out, right? Like, what does it feel like to have a three-way? I don't know. That's the first thing that came to mind. I'm not curious about that, but like you maybe you do that, I don't know. Or like feel or the feeling itself and the curiosity is not itself animating. It's not always animating, right? And so limits on curiosity exists even as a way to like cap
Yeah,
human
I'm sorry I don't
indulgence.
have perfect answers, but I'm
No,
just
no,
trying
no,
to
I'm
give you
sorry.
my
No, no, no.
experiences.
Yeah, sorry. I am not saying you're wrong, right? I'm saying I'm
Yeah.
just trying to ask question, and to the extent you don't have an answer, I don't have an answer. You know what I mean? Because it's to the like I don't know where curiosity ends. Like I'm curious. I read, and they used to hold me. Oh, just go pray about it, and I say absolutely not. I go read and figure it out, and
Yeah.
then left the church, came back to the church. Now I'm like whatever, right? I'm in the church still, but so like I don't want it to seem like I'm coming from a place of like I know better. The first argument, yes, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Then it made sense, and now we're at a place where like we're just thinking differently. But I'm just trying to interrogate, and I apologize. You can ask me question too, and you can literally say, I don't know. I can't answer that. And to that, I can say, yeah, I mean, you just said I don't have all the answers, so I apologize. Like, I'm not trying to fight like at all. Sorry.
No, no, and I again, it's just a different perspectives and different experiences, and having trying to meet at the middle. Like, well, if we can't even meet at the middle, if there is a middle. But yeah, was there another question?
Yeah. So the first question, we will leave it alone. But I will just point out to the chat, not to you, and you don't have to respond to it. So because people were, can you see the chat? No, you. This is good
I
if
don't
you
even know
can.
how to. I don't even know how
No,
to see
no,
it.
that's good. That is
Oh,
good because there are some people agreeing and then some people who are not, and I prefer you not to engage. So for the people who agrees with her, and I'm saying good, I'm not trying to fight with you or her. What I was trying to say is that curiosity does have limits. And we all engage with the limits on curiosity to maintain either dignity, job, moral values, right? Not everything that we're curious about on some mental level that not everything that we're curious about that we engage with to feed that curiosity. And I do think knowledge is power. So I prefer to be more curious and indulge my curiosity more than not to. And I would give that same advice. So what my Melanin Empress does in terms of going to read and cross-reference and get into sort of historical references, that is a good thing in my book. Even if my pastor disagrees, that is a good thing in my book. And I would tell anyone to engage that and come out how they come out. So I'm not fighting that, but I'm saying that a broad statement about sort of always being curious and always getting in that way is not always the best thing. And we know that. We've seen example of that. Um, I think this may be the chat. No, no, no. It's not the chat. That's the private chat. There, if you click on the top to the general chat, you will see the general chat. But I don't want you to. I actually prefer that you and I are talking and you have no clue what they're saying. I really very much prefer that. Sorry. Um, are you stepping away now, Melanin? You're muted if you're trying to talk. Oh, you did say you were stepping away. Um, while she does that, is there anyone else in the chat who wants to come up? This is supposed to be a conversation. Um, women are leaving the church. And also, I want to ask her when she gets back, please remind me if she believes you can be Christian and also an independent woman. Oh, she thinks you're attacking her answers. Yeah, I'm trying not to because this is not a debate. I don't want us to be debating the religion, or our religion. I just wanted to ask and in my way do my Christian duty of trying to get you back to the church without fighting or debate. But that's not going to happen. So it's going to take a lot of time. And also, I don't know. Someone asked me the other day if I would like to get Black women back to the church who are leaving. And I don't see where Black women are leaving in my everyday life. There are more Black women than men in my church, and statistically. But um, I don't know that if I could, I would. I don't know if I could bring Black women back to the church in the way that the church is, that I would do that. I think historically, the church has been very harmful to Black women. It has been very abusive, exploitative. Um, and I'm reminded of this young girl who got pregnant, who some boy man impregnated, and they dragged that girl to the front of the church. And to this day, we don't get to see the father being dragged in front of the church, right? And so there are real concerns. And for me to like bypass it and say, oh, but God said you should be Christian or else you're going to go to hell. And so I need to do my duty. I think I would be a liar. And I wouldn't be someone who you could trust if I just told you, just go back to the church, right? No. The stewards of the churches, the men in charge of these churches and women, have given men all kinds of excuses while bringing the fire and brimstone preaching on women and gays and LGBT generally. And so for me, it is like I am not here trying to tell you to go back to it. Like my purpose here is to challenge, but to listen, and hopefully ask the right questions, and we can engage broadly. So I just don't want you all to feel like I'm here to like trick you. Um, I would like tell you to go back to the church. I think before I tell you to go to the church, I would tell men who are in the church to be better, and then we can talk about whether or not you should be there. Um, all right, you said you're back, Melanin.
Yes, I am.
I don't know how much of that you heard.
I heard something about women coming back to the church, but you're not telling them to go back to the church. I did hear that part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am. I don't think if the Christians review this, they're going to drag me. But I don't feel comfortable telling women to go back to the church who have left, particularly if they've left because of mistreatment and abuse. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, I can say men shouldn't do that, but the truth is they have. We have. And in the uh, mistreatment and exploitation of women, I think I would have to first talk about and change the culture of the church. And I'm not able to do that. And if I can't do that, I can't then, with good conscience, tell women to come back to a place that has been abusive, is still abusive, because nothing has changed about the people who engage in the abuse outside of protecting and cuddling them who engaged in the abuse. So, yeah, sorry. I'm getting a message. Wait, what do you mean you want to come on?
No,
Come
I
on.
I agree with. Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
No, I mean I agree with that because I mean there is definitely experiences that I think women have the more brunt of. So I wouldn't tell. I mean, even my own personal experiences in the church, I wouldn't tell anybody to go back to the church. I think it's okay. From my experience, I'm seeing women leave the church, but I'm not seeing a lot of people leave the religion. So I don't know if that is where they're equating both.
I don't know where this came from, but there's a lot of women leaving. There are a lot of people leaving the church to become witches or be get back to a traditional African religion, which I find interesting. And it's something that I thought I would see more of today. But I do know, and I should have calculate this, that a lot of people are doing this privately, um, and a lot of people do not want to expose themselves as either witches or anything. And I think I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't know what that says in my calculus yet, because some people can be private. Some people can just say it's none of your business. Some people can be afraid, right? Um, and so I don't know. There are people who become atheist and agnostic. I was agnostic for most of my life. After I left Christianity, which is the most of my life, I still believed in God, but I was more, I believed in God, a God of the Bible, but I wasn't necessarily Christian. So, yeah. And I would love to hear people's experience as to
Yeah.
why they left. Would love to join, but I can't find the link. Was raised as Hebrew Israelite, but I've elected for over six. But I've elect. I'm not sure what this means. For over 6 years. Here, the link. This is the link. Yummy. Just click this link. Um, because I want to hear. I'm just now. Sorry.
Why?
Sorry, my friends are toxic. My friends are, sorry, go ahead, ask me a question.
Oh no, I guess it was more so just me sharing. One of the I actually have a trip to Italy next year. A few of some lady friends I've met along the way are going to be going there. So
Is this a
visiting the
coven?
Vatican. Uh, no, we're not a coven. I think they're actual seekers too. Like these are women that have left the church. They haven't necessarily, I don't think they necessarily left their religion. I think they're more the seeking and asking question phase that I was in some years back. But what I'm interested in, 'cause I shared about my experience of reading about the Mamiwatas and the Sibyls and learning about those specific time frame. A lot of their artifacts are still held at the Vatican today, like even with the Black Madonna that the Pope and the um, priest still reverence today. So I'm looking forward to that trip. So it's exciting.
And this
But
is not a coven.
no, no, I said these are women who are still. I know they don't go to like the physical church anymore. They're still somewhat still they are still Christian, I guess but they're more of like asking more questions, reading, like I said, just reading other material and coming up with their own. Um, but what I was saying, actually having this conversation with you has made me realize that I think I need to document my journey. And it's not here to convert anyone because I'm not interested in converting anybody. I feel like this is very personal choice to you. But I think it's made me realize I think there is space for an experience like my own or others.
Wait, so Yummy, you're in the background. You can turn off your camera if you want, or I can add you if you want me to. If you don't, do a thumbs up if you want to come on camera. If you just want me to add you, or just remove your camera if you want to be off camera. Just add. Oh, hello,
Oh, hi. Can everyone hear me?
perfectly. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm so sorry. I actually have my camera on. I look a mess. I just got off of
No, no,
work.
no. That's not
Um,
why I asked. It's people usually don't know that they're on camera. But go ahead.
okay.
Uh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt your conversation earlier before, but when you had mentioned being the Hebrew Israelite part, I was like, why is it always a Hebrew Israelite? Lord have mercy. I'm so sorry, but also um unfortunately I don't know how to describe this. I mean, I just put in the comments that I was born and raised into the Hebrew Israelite faith. I left over 6 years ago. I should have checked out what I had said before I sent it. I left over 6 years ago, and that is I'm not going to go too much into the experience because I have a lot of stories, but I did want to kind of share the fact that I would groups differently from what I'm understanding a lot of people who entered the Hebrew Israelite sector go into. I didn't even know there were Christian Hebrew Israelites until I was in my early 20s, maybe late teens. I'm 29 now. So that was very surprising to me. And it allowed me to explore other, I think, explore the full vastness of the idea of being Hebrew Israelite. But it was a very patriarchal religion.
All
Like,
right. I do have a question.
mhm,
I just assume all Hotaps are Hebrew Israelites. I'm assuming this assumption is incorrect.
yes,
But uh, I want you to give a story. You said you have a bunch of stories. One of the stories why you ultimately decided to leave.
I realized it caused a deep sense of religious psychosis in me when my back was up against the wall and I was having a mental just I was having mental instability. Sometimes I'm not gonna say sometimes. I was in college studying for architecture. I did not finish my degree due to COVID and financial instability, but I went to a trip to Brazil. I was literally like grateful for the opportunity to be able to go and travel. I was at that moment, I felt there was so much pressure from my history of not just being raised Hebrew Israelite, but being raised very religious, very sheltered. very type A, like everything. My mother is Jamaican, my father's African American, so that also played another. Yes, I was an IB kid. It was a lot. There's a lot going in terms of just high achievement. And I had a moment where everything crashed when I went to Brazil. Like my external hard drive, not my external, excuse me, my hard drive on my laptop crashed. My life felt like it was flashing before my eyes. This was my last year of architecture. There was so much on top of me coming from a low income background. There was just so much going on that I didn't realize. Well, I didn't want to say I didn't realize. I did not have the vocabulary at that time to express not just to my parents and the people around me, I am not mentally feeling well. There is something off. I am burning myself out. I'm burning myself out fast. I'm in a 5-year program. I haven't taken one break. My 4th year, I was working like the summer before I finished my 4th year. I worked 3 jobs at once, 5 jobs total. So I was rotating certain jobs. I was just doing way too much and not sitting down. And I was in Brazil. I blamed all that happened to me on that first day when my hard drive like went out. I blamed it on me being a bad Hebrew Israelite. I thought I was being a bad, oh my God, like a bad daughter, a bad Hebrew Israelite woman, all of these things that I wasn't even super into believing myself. It was just deep internalized things that was fed to me through years of being told things within the religion that made me terrified of Yahweh because I grew up more Jewish, Afrocentric Jewish of the Hebrew Israelite faith. So I always grew up telling people, "Oh, I'm Jewish, heavy on the ish." But I had a bout of what I felt like was psychological religious psychosis, just me blaming everything on me not being a good enough person when it came to God, me thinking that God was punishing me for wanting to have fun and relax a little bit on a, a literal school trip that we were all like as all architecture students in our 5th year stressing out about. So I then was thankfully able to eventually let those situations go. In terms of that first day having my laptop crash out, just feeling like the world had come crashing down. I mean, if any of y'all know what it is, feel like to have a crazy Italian genius of a professor who get makes you do the most best work of your life and you lose the last 36 to 48 hours of it while you were on the plane doing it. I literally crashed out. And the only thing I could think to do was blame myself in the worst way. And it was because of the teachings, the religious teachings. So that's why.
Do you have any religion now?
I don't personally claim one. I like, how do I explain this? I personally decided at first I thought I was going to claim an African traditional religion or claim hoodoo because those are the things that I was not just exposed to on my trip to Brazil, but realizing growing up, I was exposed to many aspects of that. And within my family, like on the Jamaican side, aspects of Obia that I didn't understand until I did further research. But I've decided to go against choosing one specific religion. I don't enjoy the idea of current modern day religion necessarily. I think that I just like studying. I just like learning a little bit about certain things that I gravitate towards. I like to
Nah.
focus on myself and focus on my
Why would you
ancestry.
ever want to go into Obeah though?
Because Obia to me is misunderstood by us as a people. There's so much we lost because of the laws that were set up, not just here, but not just in the Caribbean, but in America. There were a lot of hoodoo and anti-voodoo laws set up because at the time, I mean, you have to understand our ancestors, these are the things that they're able to work with, and they're living in a whole different time. So they have a different connection to herbs and to certain practices. I also do believe that Obia is very layered. So when I say Obia, I'm talking about what I know from my maternal line and what I can continue to research and use discernment. Because not everything in every single one of these ATRs, Obia, hoodoo or voodoo is exactly for you.
What was misunderstood about? I'm being petty. You can drag me. You can drag it. What was misunderstood in Ovia? Because Ovia man, when I was in Jamaica, Ovia man won me down.
Oh, your man done run you down. My God, let me
He won
see.
me down. The Ovia man went after me, and I ran, and he was like, "No, I have good news. You can keep it. You can keep it. I don't, the only good news I need is from the Bible,
Oh,
my Jesus Christ."
Lord.
But go ahead. Tell me what the
Um, I'm going to be so honest and for real. I don't fully know yet. That is part of my honest answer is I think that within Obia there was a lot of corruption. I don't think that it's necessarily the practices. I think that the common thread throughout everything that I've been seeing when I look at history, because just like Empress before me, I also love researching words and doing my best to see, well, what's the history of this and where did it come from? How did it come into our country and our language and our understanding? But to be honest, I think that Obia is very vast and it's very complex. For example, there's parts of Obia that are part of the Kabbalah. There are parts of Obia that are part of mystic parts of Hinduism. There are part of the Kabbalah that are again part of the ATRs. Obia to me is a mixture of a lot of the cultures that came there, but then you have the added corruption of people who they do use that. And I'm gonna say this because look, I come from a father in the Hebrew Israelite faith who he can't go anywhere in this country within the Hebrew Israelite in his community, in every city, even in Guyana and Jamaica, without knowing a Hebrew Israelite, without people wanting to talk to him and have him come up on the stage and podium. There are, yes, too many people who are like Obia men and Obia women who just want a platform, who just want to run you down for a nanny, for a nanny. You know, there are just some people who unfortunately want to do that. But to me, a true person who studies, who's about the study of real spirituality, they're not going to go out their way to run you down. They're not going to go out their way to go in your inbox. They're not going to go out their way to try to get you to pay an exorbitant amount of money. All the
yeah.
knowledge, like I think that I'm not gonna say this. My mother, thank God, my mother would say as a pick me, under common sense, she would just say it over and over again, and I would be like, I was really thinking about that. And growing up, I finally had a retort for her one day, and I was trying to be respectful. I was like, Mommy, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but the common sense, the American common can't read past like what, a fifth to sixth grade level. Let's be so for real. We're taking the Bible as a literal thing instead of a multi-complex layered like book of metaphors, fables, and folk tales.
1 second. Let me respond to someone. The comment was said like 5 minutes ago. And
Okay.
someone was like, let me find out Themis is anti African traditional religion. Let me see. I was like 7 or 8. And yes, if you tell me that's an Obia man down the street and you come out there trying to grab me or talk to me just out of the blue like you like teleported, yes, I'm gonna run from you. I might still run from you right now. What do you mean? It's like yeah, no, it's not against anything. It's I was afraid of that individual person. Um
Oh.
when we spell words, are we spelling message? Key love, let me say this. I'm gonna hold your hands when I say this to you. The way I just read this, it sounds exactly like that man that said you can't spell pharmacy without pharmacy. I promise you, and I don't mean like I love you all. Hopefully, I love you all. But it's the same when you're like, oh, spelling is spelling. I'm like, I just hear pharmacy and pharmacy. That's all I hear. But that's that on that.
But
We're
some
not going.
opium, look,
Go
some
ahead.
spiritual people are acting to me like Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's, look, it's funny because, yeah, if I see an OBM woman or OBM man that's running me down, I'm going to run. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And these are
I'm
not
sorry.
like for people who have all this power and whatever claim, they weren't doing great, and they tend to like be very. No, that's not right. I'm not going to finish that sentence. It's not great. Let's just say
I
it's
was
not
going to say
great.
that I've met many people who I could finish a sentence for you. There are many people who will come and, oh my God, me and my sister were talking about this, cosplaying spirituality. They're cosplaying religion, they're cosplaying spirituality. And I understand it because there is no one answer to anything. Like at the end of the day, everything is very finite and tailored to who you are. But within that, you have to have discernment and you have to have also respect. There are going to come times where you might feel gravitated to looking towards, for example, like I feel an attraction to some aspects of ancient Hindu studies and mystic teachings, but I don't take that necessarily on. Even though, yes, I'm Jamaican, that's
Half,
not part of my intricate culture. That's not part of
half,
my immediate. So,
half.
thank you.
I'm
Yes,
kidding. I'm
and
kidding.
even
I'm
though I'm
kidding.
half
I don't care.
Jamaican,
I
and
don't care. I don't.
no,
I
no,
just
but you know
no no
what?
no 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 no. Sorry, I don't care. I just did that because like I like to be trolly. I like
You know what? I should have said no, Jamaican.
period. Yeah. Wait, before you continue though, Anne, please come up. You all speak life into black men a lot. Come up and let me speak life into you and make the
Mhm.
people in this in here. The witch is gonna be mad, but we're gonna save a soul tonight. Come please. All right, continue.
No, I was saying there are many people, unfortunately, who do cosplay spirituality, but what I've understood, and again, my idea and my thoughts can change. But here's the point is that your journey is a personally tailored journey that is supposed to be a source of personal power. It is not something you are necessarily, in my opinion, need to shout from the mountaintops to prove to other people. It can be something you can tell other people as a form of, oh, you know what? I didn't think I could live my life like that, or I didn't think I could think like that. You even sparked something in me, but I don't necessarily think that there's any one thing that I can fully say, oh, I'm claiming myself as this because I think that I've even been thinking more like I'm okay now with being more of a selfish person, and to me, the idea of God is my inner kid. So that's a very the journey of healing that inner kid after all the things that I feel like I've personally been through, to me is what I'm focusing on in my life, and that's my spirituality. So that's what I choose to go through, in terms of focusing, and that means I'm going to enjoy reading things like I just finished The Great Cosmic Mother, but then there's times I like to read The Delectable. I'm about to start The Delectable Negro because there are far too many African Americans who, in my opinion, and this is controversial, and I am going to say something who believe that they are Native American. And I'm like, that's actually a much more complex history than anybody is really talking about on both ends, which I wish people would read a book. I always say, baby, having fun isn't hard when you have a library card. You can pick up The Black Indian. It's a great book on the much more complex history of Black people and Native American hit people in this country. And without, not I'm gonna say without white people, but a different lens of perspective of history as to how vast our communities intertangle or intertwine with each other to a degree, and to what degree he explains it much more thoroughly in the book because I'm not an author.
I appreciate that, actually. I'm going to come back to the Great Mother in a second, but a nightmare, I want you to get in first. And Melanie, your thing says device not connected. Also, Hyoda. Your thing says, I don't know if you can hear me. Both of you all said not connected. All right, go ahead, a nightmare. Hello. Hello. Wait, can you all hear her? Is it me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Go
sorry
ahead.
about that.
No, you're fine.
Okay, well, I just wanted to come up and share my opinions on why I left Christianity. So
Is
for
there
me,
anything I can say to get you back?
no, not at all.
Are you sure? I'm gonna try
I'm
anyway.
1000% sure. You can
And
try, but
all right,
let me
I have
just tell you my
promise.
story. So
Period. I'll stop.
I am Black American. I grew up in the Christian church, but for me, I was never truly engaged. Like, I was always the kid that fell asleep in church, so I never received the message, um, and I just couldn't receive it. Um, my grandfather, um, my grandfather is actually Native American, and what he would do was a lot of hoodoo, and I didn't know what it was first until, I guess, until I got older. But it was like a practice that he would, teach us things like how to keep spirits out of your house, how to catch a hag, just all these things he would teach us about, or how to connect with our ancestors or talk to his mom. What I found out that he used to do is he used to have seances with my mom and their siblings. There's 7 of them, trying to get in contact with his mom. And when I was younger, he would just show me a lot of things. Like, it was one of those things that I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or if I actually saw what I saw. And I just had a lot of things that the church nor my mother could explain to me, that she would just say, pray and it'll go away. Or just, if you don't believe in it, it won't bother you anymore. But I would actually hear voices and I would see things, and I would kind of have these side communications that I just couldn't really understand until I kind of started digging more into what my grandfather was doing, and also my father as well. He's a very spiritual person. So when I started disconnecting from the church and kind of getting more into spirit, that's when a lot of my questions were getting answered, and I felt more at ease with what was going on in my life. And then I just couldn't take the hypocrisy of a lot of Christians. So it was this unsettling feeling of like, this isn't right, or a lot of people being unjust. And then just me sitting there and just like, you can't say anything about it, or you can't call them out, or you just feel like you receive so much harsh criticism when you try to call somebody out on like cheating, just simple things like that I felt like I would always have this disagreement with a lot of Christians. And that's really why I left, because I couldn't follow what everyone else was following. And hoodoo felt more right for me. And with my background and my family, I felt more connected to that.
When you say you felt more connected to that, can you quickly explain what that means?
Like, the best way I can kind of explain it is you ever saw someone have the Holy Ghost, and it's like, oh, what's going on there? And they say, oh, I had this
I don't ever
experience.
believe in any of them. I think they're all liars.
Well, that's the best way that I can explain it, is someone who's having an experience and they're saying that it's real for them, and they're feeling it, and you can't. I personally don't like to say, okay, what you're feeling isn't true. But when I started practicing hoodoo and building altars, connecting to my ancestors, I felt and I heard me being spoken back to. It's the same thing like the dreams that I would have, or the things that I used to see. It was more louder, if that makes sense. And it was right. Like me manifesting. So this is a quick
Have
story.
you ever went to like?
Go ahead.
Okay, this goes on shady. I said it in my head, thankfully, before I said it out loud. I said it in my head before I said it out loud. Ooh, I don't know how to ask. Have you been here a while?
Yes.
And like, how long have you been here?
I've been watching you on and off for about a year now.
All right, so a year might not be long enough for you to know that I am not a horrible, disgusting person. So I don't know how to ask this without feeling bad.
Well,
Can I ask you a question that it's not, when you say you hear, it's not like hear voices or like manifesting. Sometimes there are things called religious psychosis, right? Where I believe, well, how do you know? How do you
Well,
know
let
what?
me. Let,
Go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
think I understand what you're trying to ask. So let me give you an
Good.
example of
Good. Thank
what I
you.
mean. So let's just talking about like a relationship. When I knew that, like, when I knew. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's this
Yeah.
guy that I was dating, right? And something, not myself, something every time when I was in his presence would make me think negatively about him. And it would just be like, I think he's the greatest guy in the world and everything's so great, happy la di da. And then when we would be around, it would just be this voice, not my own, but it would be like a voice saying, hey, you should look like, basically like a discernment, right? And it wasn't until I'm like, okay, well, let me just check to ease my mind. And it would always be something. So it was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that something told me to look. So it wasn't something that I was aware of or in full conscious of, but it was just when I would be next to certain people, it would always be something telling me, to have a little bit more discernment or be more careful. And it would always come to show that was so. Usually, like, if I'm around someone that doesn't have my best intentions, I would be able to feel it, not consciously, but it would eventually be like a voice coming to me and telling me there's something off with this person. Look into this a little bit more. And then regarding manifestation, how I know I
Wait,
can
wait, wait. Can you hold
manifest.
on? Manifestation.
Oh,
I'll
yes,
call. I'll
yes.
go back. When it comes to that kind of intuition and discernment, like there are words for it in the Bible. They're also like um evolutionary reasons for why words themselves aren't the only way we interpret how people communicate. And so we can know people or believe people are bad or good or cheating, deceptive, all of that by looking at them.
I mean,
Wait,
I
no, no, no,
get.
I'm laughing. No, no, no. I'm laughing because someone made the worst comment. Invincible Summer needs to be blocked, right? And so, because we learn to communicate with our bodies or eyes or gestures or whatever, we can pick up on, and women actually, statistically, are better at this than men to pick up on small nuances in other people. Oh, is that a baby?
Oh Lord, yes, that's what my baby's sleeping, so I'm trying to be quiet.
Sorry, I would
Oh.
like to also answer whenever she is done giving her full answer because I think that's very interesting and I somewhat agree with I actually kind of agree with her to a degree.
And I also wanted to add in this as well, just regarding the voices that I'm talking about. It's the way I know, and I call these voices my ancestors, by the way. I call them my ancestors and my guides. The way I know it's not me is because there's many different voices, different tones, different personalities. So if I'm in a certain state, or if I'm trying to explain it well, but it's kind of like I have an audience. Now I don't want to make, because I usually when I tell somebody this, oh, you're crazy, but it's kind of like I have an audience in my head, right? And let's say if I'm talking to you, there's this one voice that's gonna, say they're gonna crack jokes 24/7, and there's this other voice that's gonna say, well, maybe you should think about this, that, and the third. So it's like I've always had these voices with me, right? And these suggestions and these things talking to me. And it wasn't until I started talking to my dad and my grandpa about it, where they're like, "Oh, well, I know what you're talking about. This is that, and oh, that's your grandma talking to you, and this," and it was just a lot of things that really connected. Like say the voice could say, something that I never heard before, right? And then I'll go and I'll tell, my dad about it. He was like, "Oh, my mom used to say just that," or it'll just be a saying that would come to me, and it would be from something else, if that makes sense. Um,
It makes sense, but like I'm envisioning a bunch of voices in your head, and the
well,
imagery in my head is so bad. My imagery is so bad.
and I just
Okay,
think that this
sorry,
day and
I
age, we
apologize.
have like a bad stigma regarding voices, where it's just like, oh, well, you're crazy, or you don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about, or just everything. But I know that I'm not crazy. I know that I'm not gonna, kill someone or do something totally crazy. But I know what I hear, and I listen to it, and I know that it's
I would
right because it's gotten me out of things, or it's protected me from certain people. So
I
that's what I'll say.
that was disrespectful on my part. It's not because I want to be. It's like I literally can't control when, like I'm a terrible host of important topics when this is important, and I don't know, like I can't control myself because
No, you're
when you
totally
said
fine.
no, it's not fine, it's wrong. What I did was wrong. When you say you hear the voices, like it's a very specific image. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
drop that subject. And can you explain like manifesting?
Yes, I would love to explain
Wait, no,
manifestation.
no, wait. Before you do, let me address Brooklyn. Hey, Brooklyn, how are you? You have never heard me say this. You have never heard me say. You've heard me say the absolute opposite. You have never heard me say this. I actually I'm very distrustful of Christians who said God told them to come talk to me. Whenever a Christian said God said, I'm like, sure he did. How much he told me to give you now? No, sorry, go ahead. But no, Brooklyn, not me, not me.
Okay, so regarding my manifestation, when I first started manifestation, and I was really into it, things would come like right away. So, for example, the first time where I knew it was a lot of things that happened to me when I was younger, but when I tested it out when I was older and in full consciousness, my first manifestation was I need a large lump sum of legal money that I no, it was I need a large lump sum of money that I don't have to pay back, and I would repeat this. I think I repeated it for like 2 days. Then I got a check in the mail. I got a check in the mail, and it was a gift card and a lottery ticket, and it was for my neighbor. And it was a $500 check, and I was like, God damn, I don't need this. This isn't my money. I can't take this. So I gave it to the right person, but then I made a new manifestation. I said, I need a large lump sum of legal money that I don't have to pay back. And I started saying that over and over again. And don't you know, coincidence, of course, but don't you know what happened? My dad, he got his inheritance from his dad. With some crazy stuff going on with his money, but he got his inheritance, and I actually ended up getting $100,000 from him. So it was legal money that I didn't have to pay back, that I wasn't looking forward to. No one really knew anything about this house, right? So it was a lot of things that came up, and I started manifesting. Oh, I need this, I need that, and it would slowly but surely it would just come through. I didn't have my rent money, right? And I was like, oh my God, I just need something. Something's got to shake. And it would be like towards, the end of the month, it would always be something that just shake. I went 5 months without actually paying my rent because I was just manifesting and asking, hey, I need this, hey, I need that. And something came around. I got my rent paid up for 3 months. It was just a lot of things that I needed.
Wait.
Come on
Y'all not
now.
using this power. Y'all not using this power right. So y'all tell me you can manifest money and you're manifesting month to month. Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking it as I'm getting it, right? So I can't take all, with the money with my dad. That was his money, so I can't be like, oh my God, let me just have all of it. But he's still alive. If he was dead, it would be a different story. But I can't take all the man money, but I was manifesting, and I was asking for it. So even with my baby, I manifested my baby. I called her here.
I wouldn't call that manifestation.
Well, it's just certain things, right? Certain things that I asked for. I knew I wanted a girl. I asked for a girl. I wanted her. I even saw her in my dream, how she would look, and she came out exactly the same. So I know this may not be enough evidence for some people, but it is for me, and it's working for me. So that's why I feel, and this coming back to why I will never go back to Christianity. There are Christians on the projects praying to have their light bill paid, and you can, there's just so much asking and begging from Jesus that I can't take anymore. That I feel like I've watched generations of people live the worst quality life and still, give all their energy and thanks to God. So, or the Christian God. So that's me on my end.
Do you know the story of Job?
No, I don't. Like I said, none
Yes.
of it ever connected with me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You said you fell asleep during class, during church.
Yeah, I was knocked out.
That's fine. I'm not going to retell the story of Job. However, I as a Christian, my belief isn't that you can pray for money. I actually don't think. I don't think. Oh,
Do you know what that Easter egg kit what? No, I don't.
wait. Oh, so when as a Christian, I don't believe, and I don't care what them prosperity gospel people believe. I think they're liars and thieves, and they're all probably going to hell. I'm kidding. I don't know where they're going. How and ever. Um, I don't think everyone is going to be rich. I don't think you get to pray to be rich. I don't think you get to. I think like there is a lot of requirement for works and making sure you care for other people, and there's still no guarantees, right? You don't know why you were here. You don't know what you're supposed to learn. You don't know how you're supposed to give. Your life is not your own. It belongs to God, all of that stuff, right? And so we don't know where we're going to end up, but we do know that we contribute because we have free will. When I hear the idea of manifesting, and you can call into your vortex anything that you want, it seems a bit odd to me because the people who are saying they can manifest and that they do manifest tend to not manifest the thing that they need, right? So, like, if I am wanting to be secured financially, I'm going to manifest the money I need to be secured financially, generally, not just the money I need in the moment. And then there are now rules that no one ever talked about, that like, oh, maybe you can't manifest 1 million, but you can manifest 100. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, I could just go get this 100 somewhere, but it's not coherent in the way that, I'm not saying it's not coherent, by the way. I'm saying for me, it's not logically coherent from the faculties that I have. So I know you said, Yummy, you agreed. So for Nightmare and Yummy, you guys can kind of engage and explain to me why you can't manifest $1 billion.
Oh, I also want to, my bad. Am I able to? This is my first time being on here. Are you able to hear me? This is
Yeah.
Anne, actually.
Oh, hey, and wait, no, I'm here to like be of service to you and help you, lift you up. So
Well, because
before
I
you,
actually, because
no,
what
no,
was
tell me
mentioned,
oh, go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
because what was mentioned was kind of interesting because I understand that struggle. Yeah. I just wanted to say I understand that struggle. And I think what's hard is you're around a lot of people in the church, and there's a lot of conversations about, just there's a lot of conversations about the needs versus the wants. And sometimes I even personally struggled with, okay, but I need a stable income. I need jobs that are you feel me? Yeah.
Period.
And so but then there's this mixture of, you see other people and they kind of in the church, they're like, do this, do that, get what you want, get what you need, all sort of kind of stuff from God. And sometimes it's hard to, because there are people in the Bible where God was like, I know your needs and I know your wants, but I need you to do this. And I think that goes into I think that goes into more of a conversation of, if you're a Christian and you truly believe in God's lordship, more than if you're, you know, not really there, or if that was always something that you struggled with, which I mean, you know, but yeah, that's kind of, I jumped in because I was like, oh, like there's also that level of that gray area in the Bible and the examples, finding out which one you are. Are you going to be an Abraham who's got a lot of money, but then also he's requiring you to be faithful to having a son with Sarah, and you go off and do, you're like, okay, well, let me just try this with Hagar and also, you know what I mean? Or finding if you're a Job, or finding, you know what I mean? I think it's just generally very difficult, even as a practicing believer, or even someone who once was. I think the disillusionment can come in when you're like, who am I in that story that you're trying to tell, God? So let me be quiet. I'll come back to me later.
No. I think that you brought up a good point. I think let's accept, we'll get back to manifesting in a minute, but let's accept that free will is real, right? Because my own philosophy about free will doesn't make sense here, and we have to believe in free will even if it's not real for us to exist as human beings properly. Because if we don't believe in free will, then that's weird.
Yeah.
But let's accept free will. Free will is real. You are not predetermined insofar as your destiny in that way, right?
Mhm.
And so you get to define which of those things you are, and God doesn't dictate in that way your life, because if he did, then you wouldn't have free will, right? I'm not saying this
That'd be
is
a
true
good
or not.
point.
I'm saying from a Christian tradition, the understanding is not that God said, well, you're gonna be broke and your testimony is being broke, you know what I mean, or you're
That's
gonna
good
be
point.
rich. Yeah. And so I don't know that that's something you need to worry about, but also to have faith that you're going to do well isn't itself enough. You have to actively engage in the work to do well.
That's a
I
good point.
agree. I agree.
Uh, Yummy, you said you believe in the manifestation. So let's
No.
hear it now.
I don't. Okay, so I don't believe in manifestation necessarily because I don't like that word. I know the historical context of that word, especially that
The
you
gift.
just I'm a person where you cannot use words and terminology without understanding the historical context and how those people could use it and how it's recycled. Like propaganda gets recycled like every fucking month, not every few days. So I know the history of manifestation in this country is linked to the historical tie of Manifest Destiny, which was one of the worst campaigns that helped to how was it eradicate because they're still here, but helped to aid in the mass genocide of Native Americans, of indigeneity within this culture. I believe in diligence and consistency. I believe that when you put as much energy and time and show yourself to be a good steward in the thing that you want, that you were aiming for and you were goaling for, it will come back to you because, I mean, that's where the energy is going. Like, I kind of have to do that because I don't know, as I get older and as I get more into my own idea of what I believe spirituality is for me, I would like to also kind of tie this into, I believe their name is Hayota. I do apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly, but that when Hayota said, you know, well, out of these stories, who am I more so? I realized, no, it's not about who are you in these stories. It's about these stories are just examples. It could have been you in that story. If you
Yeah.
replaced you and your family members in those stories and saw some things, then it actually take you out of a lot of fucked up situations, or it even puts you into better situations because you are now being able to see the context of your life. I believe that in a way, this universe, we could say we want it's a cosmic womb, a cosmic mind, whatever. In a way, some people are playing Truman Show. You can say that your ancestors, in a way, are the background to the Truman Show. The thing, the producers you don't even see because you really only see the audience. And then you can even see that some people use astrology and tarot as part of the script because yes, you're an actor in the play, but you can tailor the play how you want to. You can go off script sometimes if you want to.
So I think there are I think it's hmm, I understand why people go into ideas around energy manipulation and trying to control the world.
Mm,
Unlike again, energetic level or even spiritual, because it feels a lot of the times that we don't have power in
Yeah.
our own lives and
mhm,
we don't get to determine a lot of things. Um,
mhm,
that part is true. I don't think that even if
mhm.
you're a good steward of that which you were given, or that you earned, that necessarily means that you're going to be successful. I
That's
don't think
true.
that today you are successful, and even if you didn't do anything wrong, that you can't lose it. The likelihood that you lose it is low, but you can still lose it. I think
Mhm,
that there are people in poverty who work hard and they are still in poverty. There are people who've never really
mhm,
lifted a finger in terms of productivity in a capitalistic society, and because of something that they were left with, inheritance, they will forever be wealthy, right? And so I
Mm,
don't know that I necessarily agree with the reframing of manifestation. Um, at
mm,
all. And I think there is a kind of randomness, but there's also
yeah.
planned poverty, right? There's planned wealth. There is
Yeah.
the government. There's Elon Musk
Mm,
running amok, right? So like there
mm,
is a lot to include. So I'm not really pushing back on anyone. I'm just trying to add, hopefully, context
mm.
to some of what
No,
we're discussing.
Which
I.
I'm not a in terms of mentioning the elements of spiritualism outside the Bible. I'm pretty against that. But I do understand. Well, especially I agree with what you were saying, Themis.
Mm,
I think that's a lot of what people try to grab onto is a sense of control, and I think that's our uniquely natural tendency. um I don't know, Steve, and even when we think about the fall in the Bible, that was a level of um our natural human tendency on display. You know, there's a level of information that with Adam and Eve that was being withheld, like felt, through the deception of the devil, like, oh, there's a sense of information control that was being withheld. That I'm like, wait, what's going on? Let me know more. You know what I mean? There's always this innateness with us, but I also think that there's so much grace. I think that's why God does give us so much grace. Um, because of that. Like, this world is hard, but also at the same time, I even, agree with what you're saying in terms of like that plannedness, because at the end of the day, also in the Bible, it talks about stories where God was like, I can lead y'all, you know what I mean? But human beings, we tend to, because of our iniquities, we tend to, operate in our free will that tends to not really go with God's plan, you know?
I
So,
would. I would like
Let's
to.
concede. Wait 1 second. Let's concede that the tree of good and evil was ultimately about knowledge, the tree of knowledge. Um, do you believe there's some information we should not know?
I think there's information that, just think about the fact that what will we need to even know even information about the solar systems and the galaxy?
Well,
Like,
we don't know what information it was, but would you
right.
concede? Yeah. So we can say if we should or should not know it, unless you believe that we need to know every information. Because there's one specific information. Um, there's one specific information. Someone said, "I love her twerking." No, let me just tell you that I love being dragged. I do not mind being dragged in the chat, and so yes, I'm living for Brooklyn. Um, like nuclear weapons, for example, I feel like we should have known. Like the
Mm,
mechanism, atoms splitting, whatever, great, good for energy. But
Mhm.
then there is the whole like, let's mass murder a bunch of people, right? I think there
Yeah.
are knowledge for which we probably would have done better without knowing.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I I think I would. I
Yeah.
think I would concede with your point, to be honest.
Okay, someone else was coming in though. I don't know where.
I I wanted to expand upon what I should have probably expanded earlier. I don't necessarily believe in manifestation anymore. I think that's why instead I shouldn't have said, oh, I replaced it with discipline and consistency, because yeah, there's kind of just, I believe now it's kind of up to chance. You know, you
Mhm.
do your best to plan, you do your best to do your research, be as knowledgeable as you can about something. And if it happens, it happens. I think what I do more now is accept the pros and the cons, accept the fact that it could happen, but also contend with the reality that it possibly won't. And if it doesn't, are you going to be okay? And what will happen? Can you
That's a
move
good point.
forward?
Yeah.
And how do you move forward?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree. I think that the best we can do is the best we can do. Like, do the best with what you have and hope in a forgiving God. And the God of the Bible, that is. That's the only real true God, the one true God. Mute everyone on stage so no one can object. Um, uh, Anne, right?
Hmm.
What questions do you have? Like, what is the thing in your heart? And I won't have the answer, I can already tell you that. But what is the thing that holds you back from being a Christian?
I would say because I do believe that like there's not really anything holding me back from being Christian. I believe in what you define in terms of Christianity. Yes. Um I think more so it's not necessarily um it's that wrestle of lordship, to be honest, and then also the wrestle with and the reason why I'm wrestling a lot with lordship is in some of the reasons that we're talking about in terms of why women are leaving the church. um you but in full honesty, even in terms of wrestling with the word, I have to wrestle with the fact that the word also lets us know about human nature, and that you are going to have people in the church like that. When you think about Jesus, he contended. He had to contend in his own with his own people, in his
Yeah.
own church, you know. But it doesn't mean that it's less of I think like I know that I'm in that wrestle, and it's heartbreaking. But and it's also hard too, because sometimes a part of that wrestle was, God, I feel like I'm so grieved, I feel like I'm so bereaved at life and existence on this side of eternity. Feel like there's, especially other people groups, don't have to have that bereavement. But then I was talking to a brother in Christ yesterday, and he was talking about how, because we were talking about preferential treatment, in just in general, that whole thing. And then one thing he mentioned was like, on the other side, we don't even know what the people where there is preferential treatment, if that makes sense. If their reality is pretty good or anything like that, they could be suffering just as much. So, when I think about that in terms of like the church and stuff and all like the evils and stuff like that, it's not like that stuff is going unnoticed. And I know in the word specifically, a lot of God's judgment is allowing people to do what they want and getting the fruits of what that is. Um, I think the wrestle is like, okay, but people are going to be affected. But then there's also that connection. Well, Jesus was affected too. And it's that some people, I feel like there's just going to be that wrestle, because I guess that is a part of believing in Christ and believing in Jesus, and having that process of reconciliation happen is not an easy one for all humanity, but that was God. I mean, that is God's goal. So if that's something that I'm expecting from me and my little sinner, you know what I mean? It can't be a Christian and say that you're not a sinner, like, or not like, or like there's a difference between completely continuing to practice sin versus like you just, sin basically means like falling short of God's will.
Yeah.
I think sometimes there's like that sinning is blah, 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 like in general it's kind of falling short of God's will. But then that opens up a whole nother can of worms. But
No, no, no. I'm trying to be careful.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be careful. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Some of the worst people I've ever met in my entire life were proclaimed Christians. I'm talking about all
Period.
God, like Catholic, whatever. Some of the most evil, degenerate, unforgiving, lacking empathy, lacking care, and they are. When I say they're Christian, I mean they are genuinely Christian. Like they
Period.
genuinely, insofar as we can tell, like not that I know if they are in fact Christian. I'm saying the
Right.
markers that we would map onto Christianity are people who go to the church, go to confession, go. They are some of the most diabolical people who don't like
Mhm.
if you even look at the people who proclaim Christianity the loudest, they're Republicans. Let's be very clear, right? And so there is this increased lack of empathy, and I'm not going to get political because this is not the stream, but
Mhm.
these people hold so tightly to the idea of God and that there is a being watching us with the power to like destroy and create, and that we are told to be good stewards of the world and of each other and to love thy neighbor as thyself. Like the language of love, the language of care, the language of community, right?
Mhm.
And then those same people were like, deport them people. We don't care for
Yeah.
the poor. And then they lie and say, well, it's the budget. Like, we don't know. We don't want to. No, you don't care about that. And then there's this wealth where the Bible is saying it's easier for a rich man to get through an eye of a needle than to make it to heaven, right? And
Right.
so it's this conflicting ideology where I don't know that people are Christians necessarily. This is why I outright say a la carte Christian for myself, because what we do is we choose the parts of the Bible that makes us feel good, and we ignore the burden, the part that's not good, the help thy neighbor, the give to the poor, the care for people. We ignore that part. And so when I hear people have this tension with even my fellow Christians having this tension, and the people who have the tension are the people that I love the most in the church. Let me be clear. The
Mhm.
people that I love the most in the church are people who have that tension where they're questioning and they're saying, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. Am I like those people? You can tell that they are genuinely trying to investigate, not the people who think they have it.
Yeah.
And the people who think they have it and they know what is being told are the people who are representing the religion. And
Yeah.
so, and they're weaponizing the religion and they're excusing bad behavior with the religion. And so for me, it's like very difficult for me to make a coherent argument for being a part of the contemporary church in the way that it currently exists. The people online are making money. The people who are not online are still making money. The pastors are
Mhm.
locking the doors and telling you how much money you need to give to them so they can get private jets, right? And
Yeah.
so I get it. Like, I'm never going to be up here saying it, but I also know that my relationship with God and the way that I feel about my Christianity, and this is why I've never felt the need to defend Christianity, is
Mhm.
beautiful to me. Right? Like I think about more broadly how the Bible is a metaphor for things to come and things that have been. What does it mean to be good? All of those questions. Some answers are there, and I pray and I like praying. I don't ask for things when I pray. I only say thank you for my existence when I pray. That's essentially my prayer. And I don't know how or why people feel the need to engage in this like defensive model of overt Christianity, right? Like, I will never be defending Christianity if it is true, defends itself.
Well, there
Currently,
is, because I think there is portions of the Bible that talks about contending for the faith. And I
yeah,
think,
and you
yeah,
have to. If you don't do that, then like,
Can I?
but people don't generally do that. So let me
right.
just be quick on this note, so we don't belabor this point. I think that the feeling people have when they step away from the church is real. Um, I'm not telling them not to, but I also think if you're not going to step away from the church, this is so toxic, that you should also have those feelings that people have who step away. And I don't necessarily trust you if you don't have those feelings.
Mhm.
So that's why I called you up essentially, because like I was going to essentially tell you that like if I'm pretty sure you and I have some of the same feelings about the issues within the church.
Yeah. And even for, um, to be specific, because I want to add the caveat of the people who are. And I mean, because I'm still connected to my brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm actually, I'm more attend the church online. My little weirdness with it is because it is a majority white church. And though I thought there's kind of a little centrist in terms of, they can be, sometimes during the 2024 is that just, what a long period of whatever this is to now 2025. During that, there is this kind of, well, we're very non-political, vote how you like, but and then you get into more of the conservative talk. And I was like, when my church I was going to did that, I'm like, I think your credibility went down. Either way, there are people
Mhm.
who are in the church who are aware of that, but kind of like exactly what you were saying, like there's that still praying. There's that still contending and loving for people where they're also having to contend with the injustice in the church. So there are people who I guess there are a lot of Black women who I feel like are staying because it's like being an extra warrior for those things that they know God has shown them in the church that are very inappropriate. Um, and it's kind of like continuing their mission and their call despite what they see because they're doing that for Christ alone and not necessarily for, whatever's going on. Um, and then there's some people, when you're talked about that religious psychosis, there's some people who block that out, who will remain, or in kind of like this religious psychosis version of only positivity.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of those elements that are clashing. And I think there's a lot of pain and grief and stuff like that, as it should. And I mean, if we're going to be biblically honest, that's the main stomping grounds, of where, the devil and his people, wolves in sheep's clothing, all that kind of stuff, dysfunction, etc. Because that's kind of like, you know, if you want to disrupt, why would you disrupt outside the church versus in? You know, but I think certain people's sins, especially when you're talking about leaders and stuff, especially when you're talking about other congregants, it's like those things overly influence the atmosphere of what's going on. And then you have preferential treatment. All sort of kind of stuff is in the Bible. Again, people choose not to use it, but then that causes disillusionment, which is also kind of where I'm at, you know what I mean, too. So I understand. I still connect with like people in the church, and then there's also believers who are connected to a church body, um, Bible practicing, who are, still a part of the tenets of the Christian faith, but are very connected in more of a home group level. I know some people are doing that. But yeah, I was kind of also offering a little bit of my input. But I thank you so much for I breathe in that encouragement. I've been watching y'all for a bit. And I agree
Thank
to
you.
disagree on some stuff and but I completely understand. Like this is kind of my little stomping ground.
Period. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming up. Also,
Yeah.
I don't like going to church either. I prefer to read my Bible at home and like go find something online, but I don't like going to a physical church anymore.
Yeah. I wonder, and me and my little personal, I do wonder how things are going to go down for the American church. Have you read Jamar Tisby's
No,
Color of Compromise? You should.
I will. I will now that
You
you say
will really love, because it also talks about the why there's this disparity with the white church and black church.
color of compromise.
Yeah. Jamar
Will
Tisby, he's a
do.
homie.
Found it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one, y'all. I'm still watching, but
Yay. All
Have a
right.
good one.
bye.
All right. Let me tell you that we have 30 more minutes. We have 30 more minutes. The reason is because I'm going on TikTok to troll. Well, I mean, to have meaningful conversations. And I will be back tomorrow. Um, I don't know what time yet because I wanted to go into some Kendra G. Or maybe I'll make a video. Maybe I'll make a video about this Kendra G stuff. I'm gonna make a video. I won't be back tomorrow. I'm gonna make a video. Cool. Um, go ahead. I think Melanin, you came back. You said you had more to add.
Oh, you said for me, melanin? No, I wanted just to come back on the conversation, but I would wait for somebody else to share before I come in again.
Got it.
Oh,
Yummy?
I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to briefly touch on what was talking about how old before she left. I might not have been raised Christian, but everybody in my family before me was raised Christian. It was only my immediate parents who left, quote unquote. My father was raised Christian. I don't ask me what it was. It wasn't Catholic, but it was something. My mother, I don't even know what also she was, but all I know is that she eventually became Seventh-day Adventist and then became a Hebrew Israelite. But I do understand, and I have to say, I hear a lot of people talking, and I can't help but be reminded of my parents because I hear their stories and I understand where they were at a time period where there was so much changing in the world and there was so much new, quote unquote, information that was not being talked about. And unfortunately, it was how it was being funneled, was not necessarily in the best way. But Christianity, though I don't necessarily, it's not my thing, it's not something I necessarily vibrate with. There are aspects of it that I can't help but hold because it's something that's now generational and it's in a way become cultural, especially from my African American side and my mother's side, the Jamaican side. So I I understand exactly where a lot of people are coming from, where it's like you can't get me, you couldn't pay me to go back to the Coco Church. I mean, you literally I thought about it. I was like, maybe I should go to Sabbath service with a friend because she said, "Oh, I want to. I'm looking for community for certain communities." And I said, "I love you, girl." Um, but that they just gave me like PTSD flashbacks. I don't even got my Tanakh. I don't got nothing. I don't feel like having to play up as someone that I'm not. And also it's the conservative aspects. It's these the aspects of community that people really do want. They just I think for one woman they're not gonna find it in church because not just church, but many patriarchal religions do not show women an aspect of the role that they can play in the overarching story. And when you don't see yourself in a story and you don't see the vastness of the roles that you can play in a story, you do not understand the vastness of yourself, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's so true. He's inspiring, not gonna lie. I'm assuming she's talking about me. Please don't confirm or deny. I will prefer to live in a delusional world where you are telling me that I am inspirational. But I also agree with you. Well, slightly. Because I do think you can see the vastness in yourself, even if you're fully bought into Christianity. And this is where
Mm,
a lot of Christians and I differ on womanhood in particular. Because
mm,
if if divinity is in you, any part of you, that in and of itself says something really beautiful and amazing and vast about you, your potential, where you came from, and what you are. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. But
mhm.
I we can, yeah,
No, that's exactly how I see it. That's why I decided to focus on when I quote unquote work with my ancestors, I also focus on genealogy because I also want to understand their real life experience and the stories, because I believe that part of spirituality is not just facing your quote unquote shadows, but it's actively working and facing the epigenetic trauma that unfortunately you carry, whether you like it or not, or aspects that show up, whether it be in mental health, whether it be in any aspect of your life. But I do agree with you.
yeah. By the way, Selena, telling someone you love their confidence is so disrespectful. It's so disrespectful. Just so disrespectful. There's no reason for you to disrespect me in my face like that. Um, a nightmare. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Hmm.
Okay, well, I just wanted to wrap it up for me. So I just wanted to say just because my experiences look different doesn't make it any less real. And I do trust my intuition. And yes, I do hear my voices and my guides and ancestors. They do speak to me, they protect me, and they help me move with discernment in this world. I just wanted to say that for people who experience some of the same things that I do, just know that, it is safe to practice. It is safe to listen to your guides and your ancestors. I know sometimes people label what they don't understand, but that doesn't really shake me. I feel like I'm spiritually in tuned and not delusional. I was kind of reading some of the comments, but I
Don't do that.
also, I know, but I also believe in soul contracts. So I do believe I'm here for a reason. I do believe that I'm here to break curses, and that's all I just wanted to let people know. So, just
I,
because I'm saying something that's outside of your belief doesn't mean it's outside of the truth. So that's it for me.
yeah, and yeah, our discomfort should not cause us to shame other people. So I apologize for my part in that. Um, y- I don't remember because this is when the comments were happening. You explain manifestation?
Yeah, I kind of did. I know you guys were asking if the person died before I started manifesting or not.
Yeah, that was out of pocket. That was
Yeah,
petty
it
reason.
was. Yeah, my grandfather, he was murdered. So that's how we got that money, dead people money. So, but it's all fun and games. So I get it. But yeah, that's all for me. So you have a great rest of your night, okay?
You too, I understand, and she has a right for her feelings. She has a right to her feelings on that one. That she has a right to her feelings on that. Um, Melanin Empress.
Are we just doing closing words?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in the after show, so we can go in the after show and talk a little bit more. But yes,
Okay, I'll wait for the after show.
all right. So thank you all so much for coming. It is difficult as a Christian that we are taught repeatedly that everything else is wrong, right? And there is the impulse to think that if we demonize other religion, that's fine. At least that because it's supposed to quote unquote be demonic. And so for the people who came up and for the people who are watching, know that there is some of that activated, particularly in me. I'm only speaking for myself here. And so I will joke to soften like a question that I'm asking because, like, on a fundamental level, if you're Christian, the idea that anything outside of God is demonic is like a backdrop for almost all engagement. And so I did try my best to like suspend that in the conversation, but you can't really do that. And so I am sorry, and I really tried to not engage in like attacks generally. So like just know that, and I ask for your forgiveness if you're not Christian, to whomever you pray for, around this topic. It's gonna happen again. I'm bringing this topic up again because every so often I want to talk about it. But that's that on that. See you all in the after show where we get the closing talks, statements, and then we will go over. I'm gonna go over to TikTok at like 9:30. At 9:30, I'm going live on TikTok too to have meaningful conversation. Alrighty, alrighty. Melanin. Who wants to take it first? Melanin or Yummy in Blue?
I would I would love to finally tell you that story, at least one story I've had of my Hebrew Israelite.
Go ahead.
So I recently was just talking to people who are also kids of Hebrew Israelites, who those kids, like myself, do no longer practice, but their parents might practice or still be intertwined. And it's been very healthy because I've wanted to just learn to confront some stuff, learn to confront some fears, some past traumas that I'm ready to sit down with. And I was talking to a very close friend who her father and my father are still close to this day. I'm talking, if he passes away, that's the first man I know that I have to call. And she said, I'm saying my nickname on here. Yeah, I mean, she said, yeah, I mean, you remember when our fathers went down and drove to Georgia, and took her two brothers, because she couldn't go that one day, and they went to go slaughter a lamb, wrangle the lamb, and then slaughter the lamb in the woods of Georgia for Pesach, for Passover. I said, excuse me? I was like, as she talked more about it, I was like, I thought that was a fever dream I had when I was 8 years old. I did not remember that that was an actual thing. Now personally, I do believe that if you sacrifice anything for anybody, any entity that you strongly put your faith and belief in, because that entity is leeching off of you. I believe you are the powerhouse and they can only do things through you. I believe that that bounce back came back to him and it's bad. I'm not gonna go into details about that, but um, that is one of the wilder stories I've had of like, yeah, sometimes there'll just be Hebrew Israelite men who are like, let's do some manly shit. Let's praise God and let's get into the forest and be the Levites or whatever.
Wait, do you think you blocked it out of your mind?
Oh, definitely,
I mean, I blocked
definitely.
out most of Jamaica. With most of my experience in Jamaica, I don't like it. I don't remember. It didn't happen.
I blocked out like most of things because that's a trigger word. I'm not going to go into that story, but I blocked out a lot of things when I was 9 to 11 years old. So that happened right like before I did a lot of blocking. Oh, that was so good. But it was definitely that I've thankfully, though my father is a little mentally not all the way there, he thankfully was not, and those Hebrew Israelites were not the ones on the corner that you see. Those are what I was told they were called the KOP. I don't know what that stands for. I just know they're very angry. Um, if you ask me, like, I could probably tell you things like, oh, well, how would people get in old school Hebrew Israelite? I can probably tell you that. My father is 70 now. He was born in 54. I'm 29. So and I'm his only kid. That generational gap allowed me to see a lot. It put me around a lot of older people. Back in the day, like now they do the internet, and here's what I'm gonna say. The Hebrew Israelites formed from the basis, from what I believe, is a lot of Black nationalist beliefs and ideas. My father got into being Hebrew Israelite around after the move happened, and we live in Philadelphia. So the bombing, everything like that, he said there were a lot of temples sorry, not temples, there were a lot of classes in Temple University offering more education for low-income people, especially Black people. A lot of Black people got into the Pan-African movements, they got into the pro-Black movements. That's why I didn't understand Christian Hebrew Israelites until I got older because I was raised very pro-Black. I'm talking my dad, he never ever let me buy a white Barbie doll. That man, when we went to Hershey Park once, and he was so against me eating pork and anything that scientifically was classified as pork, he made the workers go into the back, get the box so they could read the label and ingredients. Held the line up for 15 plus minutes just to say, you know what? No, we're not going to take not frozen, a soft pretzel. I said, okay, all right. Many Hebrew Israelite men are very strict on their girls, so there was another story of not just happening to me, but it happened to my friend. She said, "Has your father ever like made you take your nail polish off in front of people?" I said, "Yes." My father once, I was about 11. I wore, it could have been red, it could have been black nail polish. I was just trying to experiment with colors because I love nail polish. And I wore it around him. He freaked out, took me to CVS. He just had me that weekend. He took me to CVS before I went home, which was so stupid because you really could have just taken my ass home. I'm sorry, I'm just reversing it. But he took me to CVS, bought everything so that I could take the nail polish off and made me remove it in front of everybody in that store. So I just wanted to end off with saying that personally, my experience, it's not just filled with small traumatic stories. Thankfully, I would say I never experienced any physical SA in there, at least in there from those people. And I do only believe that's because of the hierarchy within religion and within religious communities. And my father was considered to be someone who was very well respected. So again, I had mentioned earlier the point where he would travel anywhere in the city, any Hebrew Israelite community in the city, and they would ask him to, they would honor him. They would say, "Hey, we are so happy to see you and your people. Can you please come up here and yap for an hour to 2 hours?" So he's not a preacher, but many of my friends have asked me, is he a preacher? And with all those stories, though, I was able to see a lot of things. I feel like it taught me a lot. One, it taught me about propaganda. It taught me that I was brainwashed very deeply. Because when I left and stepped out into the world and going to college, I felt like, well, shit, now not only do I have to relearn some more advanced things as continuing from high school, I had to unlearn a lot of things from my household because now I am free and I don't have someone questioning my own thought process. But I've realized that well, not spirituality, but religion it's been popping up as like a two-party system for me, this idea of God versus the devil. And it was deeply discomforting to me because I felt like everybody has a story and not everyone's story is as clean cut as they make it seem out to be. So my questioning was, what are some of the stories? I want to know people's stories because I want to understand and broaden my perspective to better just learn better my discernment and a few other things. And that allowed me to finish off with saying that allowed me to do a lot of questioning. It allowed me to get back into Obia and to free myself from a lot of the things that were taught as negative, that when I research and I'm looking at it from a different lens, I'm not talking about sacrifices. I don't believe in animal sacrifices and that sort. I'm talking about the conceptual ideas. I am talking about certain things of that sort. Um, I had to ask myself why it was so evil, why it was seen actually as so evil. And also, the final thing is, and this is probably going to be controversial, I had to ask myself, well, why is the devil seen as so evil? Because there's a lot to me that was like, to me, God and the devil are two aspects of one thing that is consistently wrestling with itself and wanting it to be. I feel like too many people and too many things of the world wants things to be black and white when it's like, I don't know. Folk tales and cosmology have a lot of, I'm sorry, folk tales to me are our cosmology. And to me, it allows for a broader understanding of something without the fear of it, if that makes sense. Understanding where it is negative, yes, but without the total fear.
So you say you will walk with the devil?
Yes, walk with the devil, talk with the devil. Honey, we're going to show stop with the devil and God, both of them in tandem.
No. Mm-mm, mm-mm,
I
mm-mm,
know, and I
mm-mm,
understand that that's
mm-mm,
other people's perspective, and that's why it's a personal
mm-mm.
perspective that that's my
Thee,
personal journey.
get thee
I
behind
know.
me.
I
Get thee
know,
behind
but I will end it with saying this. I am not saying that you should worship the devil. I am not saying that I worship the devil. I am saying that I want to better understand
him.
people for it, right. I want to better understand the characters instead of what people keep saying about the character, because there are a lot of things that show that he's still an aspect, and I'm not saying the evil because I'm like, well, I'm not gonna go into it. I'm gonna say that one thing about it, cosmology, folktale. For example, Zora Neale Hurston, her book Every Tongue Got a Tale. Every tongue got a tale. One of the first stories talks about one of the folk tales of man and woman. And it talks about how, well, man wanted strength, like both of them were made equally, but man wanted strength. And he went secretly to God, asked for strength. And the woman was like, well, hold on, wait a minute, what's going on? So she went back into God. He said, well, honey, I'm sorry. Once I give out something, I can't take it away. But she wanted some strength because he was out here using it against her. She turned around, went to the devil, and the devil said, I know exactly what to do, baby. Go to God and ask him to give you those three keys behind the mantle. She said, okay, cool. Got the keys. He said, bring it back to me when you get them. He told her exactly what to do. He said one key was for the cradle, one key was for the kitchen, and one key was for the generation. So was for the bedroom, excuse me. So and then he said, go home, lock up all the things, and don't make no argument, don't make no fuss, because it wasn't a story about the devil trying to use our heart, excuse me, woman trying to get power from the devil to use it against the man. In a way, it was a story of, well, there are so many aspects to this universe. People have power in this aspect, and other people have power in this aspect. We could look at the devil, and I'm not sitting here and saying that the devil is a good person. I'm saying that there's more to the universe than a binary system. And that's what I wanted to better understand and to be able to say, okay, I can accept it. I might not want them to be a big character in my life, but I can accept that they are a character, they have a role to play, and that it's actually far more complicated and much more nuanced than I give it credit.
So you were planning to give the devil credit. Good for you. Good for you on your OBA
I
journey.
love your trolling,
I
your humor. I do.
It ain't for me, right? It ain't for me. The only thing allowed, the only spirit allowed in this home is that of the Holy Spirit. So, thank you. I will not push back because people have been mad. But know this: you and
No,
the
it's
devil
okay.
can't
Thank you.
the devil can't go walk. Yeah, them can't go walk, man. Don't tell me how we go. Here's the thing, though. Someone said, if the devil have been alive for since humanity, before humanity, then the tricks he would play on us would be beyond our comprehension. So any engagement in or with would be you engaging in your doom. This was the one pastor that I've ever had who like engaged me. I was too young to ask the right questions though. Engaged me in theology. So yeah, yeah. Good luck. But also, do you know any people who like engage in Obia? Is there like an Obia
Um,
community? Are you part of an
Thankfully,
Obia
no.
community?
I'm going to say this, no. And I personally, I believe in community, but what I've realized is that too many times people will go into very specific places thinking they can get something from that community when it's like, no, community to me is, and anyway, I'm just going to say too many people, especially in the spiritual community, yes, they could come off and help with knowledge, but at a certain point, you're still going to have to do a lot of the work or most of the work yourself to find where you feel comfortable doing certain things and where your discernment is. So I'm personally realize that I'm a person who enjoys independent study much more than I enjoy community in terms of feeling like the community should be the one to personally teach me. I think definitely interact with community. I'm also searching myself, but I know that to be very careful, because like we said, you talk about the Obia man. I mean, you never know if there's an Obia woman come run me down. You know.
Oh, sorry. I
So
usually use Obia man. Obviously there's Obia woman. Paul, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Um, thank you, Yummy. No fire or pushback here.
thank
Melanin.
you.
You're muted. You're muted, Melanin. Oh, ooh, and out. You know, I didn't remove her because I'm still stuck in this landscape. Let me change that. All right. In closing, I'm going to put up my live stream for like 9:30, 9:40. You'll see it in the community post. Come over there. We're going to be talking. I'm not going to tell you what we're talking about, but you'll see it. Actually, I won't put up a thumbnail. Because I don't want a bunch of men to just rush over. We're just going to talk with the women about how great they're doing, actually. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to put up this thumbnail thing because I'm not going to attract anyone. We're just going to go over there, chill. I'm going to sit in my kitchen and eat, and we're going to talk. All right. Thank you all so very much for coming. This is now a series that I will be doing as someone who will start doing Bible study with some of my friends who I found out were Christians. Didn't know that. Very recently found out that I have friends who are like very into reading the Bible and Christians. And I'm like, how come I never knew that? They're like, we just don't talk about it. So we're gonna do like Bible studies and stuff. I'm not gonna do it online. I'm just gonna do this personally. But I also want to engage more broadly and be challenged on my beliefs. Not necessarily to challenge you all on your belief, but to challenge myself. I will figure out a way to do this. Maybe I'll make this private or members only because I don't want to like disrupt y'all's peace out here on the channel. So maybe I won't do it this publicly ever again, and I will private this. Tomorrow at some point, I'm going to come back and I will go over. No, I said I wouldn't come back. I have to give y'all something this week. I had a live stream, a political live stream, but I don't want to do it. I'll try to come back this weekend, but I'm gonna do a different thing. Team is just give me a headache. Wait, why? How did I? Are you asking me to just go ahead and give you the headache? Is that what you're saying, Brooklyn? Because I will just do it. Yeah. Don't private it. No, I don't think my channel is generally interested in this specific topic, but I was, and it was Good Friday, so I had to come out here and do the Lord's work. Jenna says, I did wait as long as I could for your thing to connect. When you come back, you will see that I said that I held this captive for like 10 minutes longer in hopes that your device will connect. It has not. So cool. No, I did say 9:30, but now I said 9:30, but now it's 9:45. You know me. You know me and my time blindness. No. I'm not doing Bible studies on here. I will not do Bible studies on here. I won't do that. I wouldn't put you all through that. Because the way I read the Bible, like the Christians would hate me. If I read the Bible out loud and talk about the Bible out loud, I would get dragged in Christian YouTube. if I if if I read the Bible out loud and engaged with the Bible with my real thoughts out loud, it's just period. Why y'all didn't tell me I look good? Let me stop. Have a wonderful night, and please come over because I'm going to talk to the ladies tonight. I'm sure the men will come, but we'll talk to you. So I will 9:50 at 9:50. It will be no later than 10. This will go up no later than 10. It will go up no later. Oh, y'all want me to do the political debate on YouTube, on TikTok tonight? No, I'm gonna leave the magas alone. I'm gonna leave magas alone. All right, we'll talk tonight. You will see. Whenever I decide, I'll put it up before 10 o'clock. Before 10 o'clock. Before 10 o'clock. At 10. At 10, around 10 o'clock. Around 10 o'clock. No later than 10:05. It will be no later than 10:05. My live stream will be no later than 10:05. All right, no later than 10:05. That's it. That's the final saying. Have a good night. Bye.